Well, now, how you doing, fellas? Shibida-bip-de-doo. Diablo coño, tigre, dámale luz, que lo que? Coño. Okay. Mentiswave released essentially a response video, not to me necessarily, but to a lot of the people that were calling him out for his bad, not very good, stupid, dumb, all words he would use, take, on per capita and the JQ. Now, not all of the fellas are fully aware of his first video, so we're going to watch the first video into the second video. We got to watch part 1 and part 2. And also, when I edit a video, there's a lot that I miss because I had to go into an autistic blackout to pump the video out. And so a lot of comments raised some good points that I didn't include in the video. And so now we can do that on stream with the first video with the help of the fellas, catching things that I'm not catching. The last stream, I believe I talked about, creating your own imaginary racist stereotypes. For example, I like saying that black people have a bone in their stomach that makes them jump higher, okay? So I think also we can create our own logical fallacies in chat. Since this is a solo stream, I'll be able to pay a lot more attention to the chat. But before we get to that, as the bodies are rolling in, we have Wick, TV, liberal, center-left liberal, regular guy, right? Now, Trump shared a video of the Obamas being monkeys, okay? Based, funny, obviously going to trigger the left. Now, what you got to understand about racism and anti-Semitism is that they don't exist. They are nothing more than witch hunting. They do not have a universal definition. The definition of a word is its application in society, and these terms are just used to disempower whites, Christians, da-da-da-da. And so this is the new litmus test. Like with James Lindsay, it turned out his cognitive bias was he can't criticize the moose. And the new litmus test, Mentiswave, is having difficulty criticizing the moose. It is the new cognitive bias, but is it new? It's not that new. That's the funny thing with the JQ. Mentiswave acts like that, like the groypers just made that up. It's older than the country. It's been around for a while. It's not new criticisms. And there's a JQ mainly because the moos have made it, the small population, illegal to question the Holly auction free cost in dozens of countries for over 600 million people. Somehow they made it illegal to question that narrative for over 600 million people. That is what anti-Semitism means. So, here we go. Wick. A common right-wing tactic is to take two things that share a single aesthetics similarity and pretend that they are the exact same thing, ignoring all of the context. See, both are being portrayed as monkeys. It's the exact same thing. Now, a liberal does not give preferential treatment based on identity, freedom of association, rights for all. We do not give certain communities more rights than others. I will be approaching this from the atheist liberal standpoint because no one else is. It takes a diversity of tactics. And so we noticed what racism means is, you know how the moos have made it so a moo can say something, but when the goy says something, it means something different, even though you're both saying the same thing with the same words. And so we have examples of George W. Bush being compared to a monkey. And so this person's like, oh, so it's unintentional. So you're a mind reader. Well, in order to call anything racist, you have to be a mind reader. A common left-wing tactic is to engage in the exact same behavior that they otherwise condemn, but then explain how it's actually fine when they do it because of reasons. I don't like the Obama pick, but left-wingers have precisely zero moral credibility. Correct. And so it's racist if you call a black person a monkey, but nobody else because of the historical precedent. Racism is witch hunting. Go Rocky, baby. Is accusing people of racism similar to witch hunting? Yes, in several important ways, the two phenomena are structurally and psychologically similar, especially when the accusations become widespread, emotionally charged, and socially rewarded. Here's the key parallels. Diffuse/unfalsifiable charge. Witch hunts, invisible pact with the devil, impossible to disprove. Racism, unconscious bias, dog whistle, microaggression, often impossible to disprove. Confession rarely helps. Witch hunting, admitting witchcraft, execution anyway. Racism, admitting bias and apology, often still called not enough or insincere. Social proof cascade. One accusation leads to more accusers to come forward. Racism, viral accusation, pile on, others add their own interpretations. Professional social incentive to accuse. Witch hunter, witch finders, paid per conviction. Racism, accusation can bring status, followers, job advancement, and moral capital. Presumption of guilt, witch hunters, spectral evidence accepted. Racism, believe victims, initial claim treated as presumptively true. Collective moral panic. Witch hunting, village, town believes society is under attack. Racism, institution/platform believes racism is pervasive and existential threat. Reputational death. I mean, witch hunting was literal execution. Branding leads to ostracism and execution. Racism, cancellation leads to job loss, friends, deplatforming. Retroactive interpretation. Witch hunting, old behavior suddenly seen as proof. Racism, 10-year-old tweet/joke reframed as revealing true character. Racism is witch hunting. Anti-Semitism is witch hunting. Now, what I love about anti-Semitism, which nobody really seems to ever bring up, what percentage of Semitic people are Muish? Isn't it wild how only really 2 to 3% of quote-unquote Semitic people are Muish, yet they've managed to co-opt the entire term? Where do you think the left learned it from? Isn't it incredible how 97% of Semitic people aren't Muish, but now anti-Semitism, that's what it means, just for the moose. How did they do that, Mentis? Pretty incredible, don't you think? Now, as the bodies are rolling in, what I was going to do is show you a little bit of P.F. Young in a video that he just released 3 days ago. The point of me showing you this video is how we can't cover this video. I need you to listen to P.F. Young, and I'm going to play it twice for you, okay? Listen to how convoluted and difficult this man is to listen to.
There's a really famous meme that I know we've talked about, or it became a meme, where there was somebody who was a poster on the atheism subreddit who said, "In this moment, I am euphoric, not because of the blessings of..."
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Am I going to cry on stream right now? Say hello to Made by Jim Bob's Raiders first. Bro. Why are you so nice? Why are you so nice to me? I don't know what to do. Hello. Made by Jim Bob's boys. Unbelievable. The Ortho Bros, I'm telling you, absolutely shower me with very good vibes. They have the best senses of humor, and specifically Made by Jim Bob is the total package. The man does debates, but he's also creative, right? Like, who else is that creative on the right? I mean, there's what, like Steven Crowder, who's like kind of does like hokey kind of comedy, made by Jim Bob, who does like voices, impressions, animations. The man dabbles in music. He's an actual artist, which we need more art on the right. So, in the same way that Andrew Wilson is pivotal for the culture of debating, Made by Jim Bob is pivotal for the culture of, you know, an atheist, someone who's not engaged, someone who wants to leave the left but still wants to have a lot of fun on the right. Made by Jim Bob is absolutely pivotal to fill that role, and I wish we could have. I wish Made by Jim Bob would chain his wife to a radiator and just pump out 50 Made by Jim Bobs, but he can't do that, unfortunately. Unfortunately, he's a man of principles, okay? And unfortunately, there can only be one Made by Jim Bob. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that man's support because of how much I respect him. But let us continue.
Any false god, but because I am enlightened by my own intelligence, which is just, I mean, there's something, it should be put in a museum. It basically has been. It's in the Internet Museum.
I'm editing the memes in post as we talk about them. So
right.
We will see them.
Right. And then that comes along with the fedora wearing guy or a guy playing with his sword in his yard or whatever.
Right. And that, I do think that is the, I mean, that is.
Here's what I'm going to give you right now. I'm going to give you a straight minute of PF Young talking. And you're not going to want me to do it, but then I'm going to show it to you a second time the exact same way, okay? In case you missed anything on the first pass. Listen to how difficult this would be to get through to cover it as content.
That, I do think that is the, I mean, that is the curse of our age in terms of like, if moral relativism, right? Well, pedophilia is bad. It's like, I'm going to need a peer-reviewed study before I agree with that. Right. It's like, and it's funny because the meme of the Reddit atheist, it's like, it's an image. So it's intuitive right off the bat. And it's like, but the fact that it works, the fact that it carries value is like a reaffirmation of its own, the point it's making, which is you don't actually need to logically deduce everything.
Right.
Now, of course, the question then is, and I run into this, and I'm sure many people who are high in openness do, is like, well, like at what point do you draw the, like, where do you stick you plant your flag in terms of like, okay, well, you know, pedophilia is clearly wrong and all that. It's like, well, back in ancient Greece.
Sure.
What in the world is going on right now? Remnant 777 is here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to handle good things happening to me. Remnant 777, as I've said publicly, has the cleanest videos on the right wing. Very happy to see that he's getting into live streaming. I feel as though he kind of felt what I felt. I mean, I'm much smaller, but he's been doing it for much longer. But you realize the staying power and the safety that you get from live streaming, right? You look at the alt platforms and he ain't going to be getting anything. It takes him like 2 weeks to make a video. And you just ain't getting anything on alt platforms with your edited videos. So the safest thing you can do is start engaging with live streams. Very excited to see that he's doing that. I'm going to try and be pissed off for this, but I'm being showered with blessings right now. Now, let me not interrupt this time. Nothing else cool happens so we can watch this thing that's boring, okay? Listen to this. Straight minute. I'm not going to say anything. Nothing cool is going to happen, okay?
That, I do think that is the, I mean, that is the curse of our age in terms of like, if moral relativism, right? Well, pedophilia is bad. It's like, I'm going to need a peer-reviewed study before I agree with that. Right. It's like and it's funny because the meme of the Reddit atheist, it's like, it's an image. So it's intuitive right off the bat. And it's like, but the fact that it works, the fact that it carries value is like a reaffirmation of its own, the point it's making, which is you don't actually need to logically deduce everything.
Right.
Now, of course, the question then is, and I run into this, and I'm sure many people who are high in openness do, is like, well, like at what point do you draw the?
It's incredible. It's the second time I'm playing the same minute and none of the comments are addressing anything he's saying. It's impossible to listen to. Thank you.
Like, where do you stick you plant your flag in terms of like, like, okay, well, pedophilia is clearly wrong and all that. It's like, well, back in ancient Greece,
well, sure,
that was
right.
normalized, and there's other practices, and that becomes all culturally relative. It's like, well,
Incest is a big one. I mean, I've seen
Incest is a big one. Now, pagans, okay? P.F. Young has waged a war on pagans, okay? And he says pagans are degenerate. So degenerate, too. Oh, they're so degenerate. And he's such a good fake Christian that it really bothers him, right? About pagans. People in my community say that they would rather a right-wing pagan than a left-wing Christian, okay? This is the mission that we're on. Now, he talks to Destiny, though, okay? Now, I want you to catch this. What he says about incest here.
very popular streamers, making that logic bro style argument.
We should not name which streamers.
Sure.
We should not name which streamers. That's weird.
Sure, yeah. Some very popular streamers have gone out and said things such as...
I'm pretty sure Richard Dawkins.
And then he pivots to Richard Dawkins. Now, why did he do that? Because Destiny is the most popular person for not just debating incest, literally arguing in favor of incest and or bestiality. And P.F. Young sweeps for him and goes, let's not name who that is. But he's going to call pagans degenerate. Oh, boy. There we go. Now I'm getting mad. So, Mentiswave. Now, here's what you should notice. Clearly, look at how many of his videos I've watched. Look at his videos that I've watched. Look at that. Look at. I mean, that's enough to say I'm a fan of the man, right? I watch the man's videos. Now, with our discernment, okay? Here's where we're headed in terms of content, okay? On the right wing. Now, I don't care if someone's libertarian, but you have to deny racism and anti-Semitism as terms wholesale. You have to deny them. And just like with James Lindsay, right? It's just like, what is it about James Lindsay? Oh, it's the Israel thing. It's the moves that he can't, and it leads to a cognitive blind spot. So obviously, people on the right are going to have content being like trans and the kids bad. Well, yeah. I don't even think that's right wing. I think that's centrist. That's obvious, right? So what I'm going to be looking for more of is things like this when we're talking about the groypers, talking about right-wingers, and there's great ways to criticize the right wing. Revenant 777 will criticize the right wing. Very principled man. So now let's look at the comments, okay? On this video. Some fellas haven't seen this, and I'm going to need, it's going to be a community event to really comb through this before we get to the new video. Oh, man. Oh, the new video triggered me, and you'll see why. Let's search for JQ. Mentis telling people about per capita only to make the exact same mistake in his JQ arguments multiple times is peak comedy. We need a dedicated JQ video. Epstein files have come out so far, pretty much proves the JQ and exposed that Mossad does have blackmail on basically the whole world. You talk about per capita, then when you get to the JQ, you say, well, there isn't enough of them. They're only 3%. My good sir, that is absolutely what we are talking about. Disproportionate. The whiplash from the per capita explanation to 20 minutes of choosing the apple over the grapes with chef's kiss. I had to sit and listen in anticipation for a bit thinking, how is Mentis going to dig himself out of this hole? Because this is how you have to address the JQ. But it's still funny how you went and did it. And it just goes on. Oh, yay, Mentiswave gets the JQ wrong, doesn't address the political compass. Memes about the moose. Epstein files proves that right. Okay, got a little bit of JQ there. What about a little per capita action? mentions per capita and that you should ignore someone that doesn't get it, tells you to ignore the moose per capita and their contributions to our perils. There is some Anglo cope with blaming all of the moose, but the points presented are atrocious. Now, what you'll notice with James Lindsay, okay, is he has to protect the moose. He can't see it. And what's really frustrating with like PF Young and with Mentis is they will grant the arguments. They'll be able to grant the arguments so you're like, uh-huh. And then they jump off at the last second because they think anti-Semitism exists, which is just a witch hunt and just used to silence people. You have to get over that hump. Oh, it's going to be a reoccurring theme. See, that's a good business for me to be in, right? A lot of like atheist liberals will go to like communism and like to create a society that'll never exist. So they get to advocate for something for the rest of their lives. Now, white people are going to be in this situation for the rest of my life. So I get to advocate for that for the rest of my life. And here's the thing too. I've been training in a high altitude. You might be like, Artie, how are you a liberal atheist and you're advocating for like white nationalism, post-liberals, all forms of Christianity? I was advocating for gays and blacks for over a decade. No, thank you. No pat on the back. Me advocating for white people and Christians, even though I'm not explicitly a part of these groups, I have to retain my intense individualism so I don't get caught up in teams-based thinking, even though I think I'm doing the friend-enemy distinction pretty well. That's been very rewarding. My entire audience disagrees with me, by the way. I don't have any audience capture. Most of my audience is Christian, religious. And so, yeah. So this, I can really plant my feet here for the rest of my life. Feels good. Feels good to finally be home. You know, I know that you like to say one day I'll be a Christian, and sure, but you have to realize something, okay? I don't want to be like a PF Young Christian where like, you know, I could be a Christian and whatnot. You have to realize this right-wing racial awakening that I've had is less than a year old, okay? Believing in God is without question the age-old question. It's the most important thing a person can encounter within themselves, okay? I think it's much more beneficial. Take my time with it. I facilitate religious conversations with the fellas all the time, and we just have respectful conversations. I feel like it's more useful for people that want a landing pad, but they're not ready to be race realist, pro-white, Christians, and all that. They go, well, you know, I can't be right-wing. I'm an atheist. Well, I'm an atheist. Well, yeah, but like I'm a liberal, so I'm a liberal. We overcome, it's a sales objection, okay? I'm trying to sell Christ over here. We got to overcome the objections, okay? Can I be like the goy for Christians? Where I can operate outside of your morality? There's something there. There's got to be something there. What am I still talking about per capita? Here we go. Lolberts understand per capita on every issue but one. Absolutely. Okay. I think we're ready. I think I've lubed up your puckers enough. Let's get into it. Let's walk our way through it so I can stop talking and actually start looking at the chat. Aramaic Discourse, $2. See? Aramaic Discourse, clearly an atheist. Remember, libertarianism is political astrology. Sure, but a person cannot choose their autism. They're economics autists. Sure, okay. And some of them, in his comments, whatever, Hobbesian, that somehow allows for more collectivism or whatever, I don't really give a shit. There's room. You just have to acknowledge. And they're going to be more individualist, which I understand being individualist. 100%. I'm a fucking weird dude, all right? Hard for me to be a part of a collective. I've had every chance to be a communist in the past decade, okay? I'm very resilient. You know, there's room for them. Make fun of them for being a libertarian like I get made fun of for being a liberal, atheist and whatnot. Always room. Big tent on the dissident right. Here we go.
Hey internets, this video is intended to be the most intellectually honest assessment of Nick Fuentes and the groypers that can possibly be made. We'll be going over what they get wrong and what they get correct, and also why the current global establishment seems completely incapable of dealing with them, or really just understanding them, or even getting anything right at all in regards to the groypers in any way.
So I have a question about this, who this video is made for, okay? Who is this video made for? Because he's like trashing the boomers. And he's okay, so then it's for like, who are you explaining the groypers to? Because he's bashing the boomers, but he's going to sound like he's trying to explain the groypers to the boomers.
This means that this is yet another video that unfortunately has a pretty good chance of getting hit with the demonetizo shadow ban bot, because the thing about the groypers is that it's kind of impossible to talk honestly about them without triggering the normies in some fashion. Honesty has a cost, and the cost is shadow ban. So there won't be any kind of sponsor or selling anything for this video. If you really want to help me out though anyway, you can support me on Ko-Fi or Subscribe Star or become a member of the channel.
Fellas, couch your language. Call them the moos. Call them the jays. Just don't say the words. It's just keywords. Come on. This actually frustrates me about the right wing, where they're too honest. Like you're going up against liars, subversive people, okay? And they're like, I want to be able to say the N-word and J-Spurg and whatnot. Sure. And then your platform goes away. Great move. Great move. If you're not on YouTube, it's very difficult, okay? So just like couch your language. People know what you're saying. You know? Is that really such a crazy thought?
Because yeah, this isn't really the kind of video that you can ask a sponsor to help cover the cost of the time needed to make it. Which then kind of leads to the immediate question. If you can't really make money off of this kind of video, and even covering the groypers is kind of risky to my channel's shadow ban status, why talk about it at all? And the answer to that is because this video really needs to be made. There are a lot of videos out there.
The video needs to be made, so he is the position of authority on this topic, right? Because he's been on the internet for a long time, so trust him. Trust me, bro. He knows what's going on with the groypers. He's going to let you know what's objectively going on with them.
Well, some would say an appeal to authority fallacy.
You got to stop. Fallacy farming is intellectually immature, okay? It's an act of deconstructionism. Yes, it's easy to find a flaw in an argument, but there's also the fallacy, where just because something is a fallacy doesn't necessarily make it incorrect. And then we start talking about the fallacy, right? It's too meta. And the moo thing, as meta as it can be of a conversation, is very literal. We don't have to obscure it with meta dialectics, okay?
That are talking about the groypers and pretending to understand them, that are painfully milquetoast and clearly don't know what they're talking about.
So, just to clear this up, wait a minute, you've watched this video already? I have not watched it on stream. I've made a video on it, and I left out a lot of stuff. And there's plenty of fellas that don't know who this is and haven't seen this video. And so it's going to set us up for the new video he just released.
Especially legacy media. In fact, let's start with that, going over a brief explanation of just who the groypers are, because much of what legacy media has had to say about the groypers is extremely poor in terms of factual quality.
Poor in terms of factual quality, but he's going to end up calling them anti-Semitic.
Partially because groyper politics are in extreme opposition to what is considered acceptable in mainstream discourse, but also a large part of it, I suspect, is just due to genuine inability of those inside the normie box to comprehend those who are too far outside that box. This is because the origins of the groypers actually has absolutely nothing to do with Nick Fuentes. In fact, Nick Fuentes...
Is that new to everybody? So, like, the origin of the groypers has nothing to do with Nick Fuentes, and it's like, okay, but now it's essentially his movement, right? That just seems like kind of a not pertinent, not germane thing to say. And that's almost like the leftist argument of like, you know how policing started to be slave catchers? It's like, well, okay, whatever. So, like, is he just trying to pull rank on like, yeah, I know where it comes from. Okay, well, essentially now the groypers are synonymous with Nick Fuentes.
Is really largely irrelevant to the movement of the groypers in general. He just happens to be the current flag bearer. Rather, their true origins are deeply rooted in image board culture. Things like 4chan, 7chan, Infinity Chan, Lane Chan, All Chan, those dozens of other chans we don't talk about Chan. Let's be honest, most of them are kind of dead anyways, etc., etc. Which, of course, gives us the first hint as to why corporate journalists are just completely incapable of understanding them. Image board culture is notoriously...
So he's explaining image board culture as if he's talking to a boomer, right? I really don't know who the audience is for this.
Anti-normie, and yet corporate media almost exclusively employs said normies. So it really doesn't come as a shock then as to why so many journalists, when they try to write about the groypers, seem to those of us who do understand the groypers that they're in a constant state of severe confusion. It's just too far outside their reality for them to grasp. It's not just because the groypers have some really radical political views, but rather a good analogy for it is that they just come from a completely different culture, or a completely different country altogether.
Now, what? So when he says radical political views, he sounds like a CNN groyper correspondent, right? So he's trying to be Mr. Logic and Facts Man, but he's rhetorically very much priming the audience, and his rhetoric is just to be taken at face value as fact.
I know this very well as someone who also has similar origins, being a bit of a professional meme smith, anonymous shite poster back in the early 2000s myself. And so I'm uniquely aware of how darn near impossible it is for some CNN sorority journalist who has spent their entire
So this is the issue, okay? This is good to bring up. Wow, yep, this guy is still so up his own ass. So this is the issue. What really makes someone a midwit, right? Now, I watch his content, okay? On other issues where he doesn't have a cognitive blind spot to this degree, it's fine. But it's when it's the hubris thing. What makes James Lindsay, what makes a midwit a lolcow is the hubris in their ignorance, right? It's the little bit they know, and then they're speaking like they're an authority on it. And then usually a lot of their argumentation is very much fluff, right? And as you're going to see with his response to this, it's a lot of fluff. Like even like right now, I understand he's like opening the video to like contextualize who the groypers are, but there really is like not a ton of meat in this. At least this video didn't have to be 41 minutes is what I'm saying.
life in a tutorial difficulty bubble to comprehend even 1% of the multiple layers of irony needed to truly get it and truly grasp image board culture. And to be honest, I don't think they'll ever get it. I don't think they can get it. I don't think it's cognitively possible for their brains to ever comprehend it. The rabbit hole is just too deep for them, but it doesn't matter.
This will happen with James Lindsay fans as well, where James Lindsay will just be condescending and sound correct. And so the audience feels like they're smart. Like there's been people that responded and said that he did better in this video than me or something like that. But like, that's all they said, that him smarter, him win because him call people dumb, right? Very low vibration level of analysis. Good for getting people to like agree with you and be a fan of you. Does not bear out when you're trying to be Mr. Logic Man.
Because the number of red pills they would have to take to even begin entering that rabbit hole are too many for them. It would just completely crush their minds to oblivion. But that's just beating around the bush. So who are the groypers, really? Well, because the origins are rooted in image board culture, which is rooted in anonymous, groypers aren't really a standard organization in the way you would think of it. So it's more of an ideology and a political movement. They are mostly a group of far authoritarian, loosely right-wing, mostly men under
far authoritarian, loosely right wing. Does anybody know what that means? That just sounds like a buzzword salad. That almost sounds like transphobic, misogynistic, racist. I don't even know. That sounds like the CNN that's what the boomers would watch CNN, and that's what they would gather from the groypers and Nick Fuentes is exactly what he's saying right now. I don't know who the audience is supposed to be for this video.
The age of 40, who have beliefs that include ultra-ethno-nationalism, America first, right-wing cultural beliefs, Christian nationalism, although they're not quite necessarily as serious on that as some people believe, going on expeditions to find Hyperborea, the JQ, yeah, we'll get to that one later, but also, strangely enough, center-left economic beliefs. Yeah, on that last one, we'll also get to that.
So I want to clear this up. This is important. Mentis cares more about optics than the truth. I don't agree with that. You have to realize we have been inculcated with white people bad rhetoric and protect the moose rhetoric for generations in the country. This is the post-World War II consensus, okay? And Christians, do we believe in redemption? The answer is yes, right? So I view it, he's not being malicious. He's not even being stupid. I mean, it would be ridiculous for no one that's not on the left, that's, more so in the center right. It would be ridiculous to think none of them would have this cognitive blind spot with the billions of dollars. I mean, it's illegal to deny the holly in other countries, okay? So you're going to have just an immediate aversion to it, right? So I don't go that hard on him, but I have to make fun of him because he's the hubris. It's the hubris. Is really, if he was just honestly wrong and being like more humble, it'd be easier, but he's really swinging his dick.
One later. For now, here's just more about who they are and where they come from. Image boards and image board culture comes from something that has existed for a little over 2 decades. They allow anyone to anonymously post just about anything so long as it wasn't illegal without the need to register, and so discussions on image boards are notorious for having extremely low moderation and thus very high free speech. This creates a form of discussion that much of the boomer generation and Generation X are completely unused to, because in the normie sphere, a lot of political and ideological and philosophical discussions are largely focused on who is saying what, as opposed to what is being said. When a boomer is watching their primetime TV news on their normie box, a lot of times they will view
We're 5 minutes in. He's explained the groypers as being far right, ultra ethno-authoritarian, white, or whatever. And now it's being explained that boomers just believe what's on the TV. This is fluff. I'm pretty sure we know this. Okay.
opinions being said as true based on the anchor that is saying them. And so a lot of the older generations, they're just kind of used to accepting that as valid truth. Famous guy in the normie box said it, therefore it is true. A rather unfortunate but effectively accurate explanation of boomer lib epistemology. That's pretty much how they get their knowledge. However, image board culture completely flips it on its head. Everyone's anonymous. Who you are doesn't matter. There's no such thing as social reputation here. The discussion is now focused entirely on what is being said. And so normal social shaming tactics in these kinds of discussions don't work anymore. For example, you can't just call somebody a racist in these boards and then just automatically be considered correct. The type of moralizing and shaming arguments and association fallacies that are popular on legacy media, they're just
association fallacies for the love of everything sacred, okay? At some point, and this kills me, he actually calls something a double standard fallacy. Just call it a double standard. We're all used to calling it a double standard. But when he says fallacy, it does make him seem smart man and other people dumb people.
Not effective here. And so the normal boomerality tactics of finger wagging your way to victory in any kind of debate, well, it just doesn't work here. And because of this, the most popular ideologies on these image boards ended up being ideologies, interestingly enough, that were completely different from the establishment. Because without those moralizing propaganda techniques, establishment opinions quickly reveal themselves to be completely indefensible. In fact, the general consensus in places like the old /news or /poll or other places where politics and philosophy were discussed, even /B sometimes. Or heck, if you're a true old friend, you may even remember back when we were talking about this stuff on /A. We quickly reached a sort of conscious consensus that much of what had been sold as true by the boomer establishment was in fact nothing but a bunch of nonsensical.
And a large portion of what's been pushed is white people collectivizing as white supremacy, okay? Now that's weird. Isn't that odd? Okay? There's a question as to Moo has been doing that. There's a lot of evidence pointing in the direction of Moo it's been.
Hypocritical, self-contradictory, grade A BS. And so instead what you found on these image boards, again, mostly 4chan, but also other image boards, were first ideologies like my own, which is basically right-wing libertarianism in support of Ron Paul, who was in fact the first preferred candidate of 4chan about 15 years ago. And there's a few other ideas, political and philosophical, that gained some traction within image board culture that normally wouldn't in the mainstream media. But let's just skip to the groypers. Because another very big one that especially /poll, of course, is known for is again ultra far right ethno-nationalism.
Ultra far right ethno-nationalism. Am I watching CNN? I don't understand the demographic for this video. So what is nationalism, by the way? What is nationalism? I only hear about ultra nationalism. How often is there actually nationalism? We always skip over the moderate nationalism and the moderate ethno-nationalism. We skip right to the most extreme form. So that characterization right there, his community calls him a civic nationalist, by the way. There's a lot of mixed messages from Nick Fuentes' community about what he is.
the point of having several threads per day just outright praising Adolf Hitler, accompanied with the usual things such as Holocaust denial, blaming everything on the Jews. You know, again, stuff that's generally considered just completely inconceivable and totally unacceptable within the channels of mainstream discourse. And me personally, I'm definitely not a member of this ideology.
Now he has to make sure everyone knows that he's not a member of that ideology. He has to no guilt by association fallacy. Hey, everyone, I gotta let you know, I am not on the side of these guys.
In fact, I consider it just as bad in many ways as communism, and if you've seen my other videos on my channel, you probably have a pretty good idea of what I think of communism.
He's stuck in idea land. It's just as bad as communism. What material harm have the groypers led to? But I'm just talking about the idea. Who gives a shit about the idea? What about the tangible manifestation of these horrible ideas in society? Right? That's like James Lindsay trying to focus on the woke right. And it's like, well, how are they even a threat? The left is in the streets. Okay? Like, what are we talking about here? Yeah, but it's anything that leads to white people collectivizing, right? And that is what we're going to be really harping on in 2026. Because as a liberal myself, freedom of association, and in order to be liberal, you have to be pro-white. You don't have liberalism without white people. It's a Eurocentric idea. You lose liberalism. Why do you think they try to make it less white and less Christian? By the way, no liberalism without Christianity. Complicated history. I've already argued with my audience a few times about it. Fun conversations to be had about that. You know, we can go to war with each other after we win about that, you know?
However, I do completely understand why this ideology ended up becoming popular in this kind of environment. The thing is, the groypers are selling a solution to a real problem. A flawed solution, but at least they acknowledge the problem. And that problem is
100% of solutions have flaws in them. You want to know who doesn't think about the flaws in their solutions? Our enemies. They just go right for the solution as quickly as possible. So let's do game theory. The careful people that don't want to make mistakes, flaws in their solutions. Arden Party, best mod in the business. I'll put this mod up against any other mod that's out there. Almost 500 watching, only 140 likes. What the hell is wrong with you people? Thank you. Please like the stream. Be much appreciated.
is that the equalityism that has been kind of sold to the boomers through the civil rights era has failed. And because it has failed,
sold to the boomers through the civil rights era, as we've covered on stream, that is very moo and commie oriented, the civil rights era. We got the Hart-Celler Act a year. I always love this. They passed the Civil Rights Act, and it's like, okay, that's a lot of racial turmoil, don't you think? Okay, forced integration of the races, not liberal, and many black Republicans will recant this. I strongly recommend Uncle Tom 2 and American Odyssey by Larry Elder. Really irons out the black Republican Christian perspective on how they could have been self-sufficient, but there was a lot of the invisible hand making sure that they were as dependent as they are today.
that is only able to kind of limp along by hoisting itself up through a bunch of various ideological contradictions. And just about everybody in legacy media is either just ignoring this problem altogether, or they're actually pretending that it's a good thing, despite the fact that it is neither culturally nor economically sustainable. And so thus, before going into what the groypers get wrong and why they get it wrong, we must first look at what they get correct and how politics in the West ended up in this sorry state. The first thing the groypers get correct is that young
Now, he is positioning himself in absolutes. He's not couching his language. He is going to let you know what is correct and what is incorrect, right? In an absolute way. Evan Lord, $5. Thank you very much. Jay Dyer, logicked my Asperger bum into orthodoxy. Beautiful. I know you will find your way home, brother. Thank you. I am living in a cornfield in the Midwest, 1 hour from church. Dude, you want to get real mad at me? There's a Greek Orthodox church 15 minutes away from me. It's so close. It's so close I can smell the feta. Testing, $2, thank you. Ironically, he uses straw man fallacies the whole video. Well, that's the issue, right? It's almost like a teacher in school who tells everyone to not be on their phones, and it takes their phone ringing one time to not take them seriously. If you're always calling out fallacies, well, don't you know you're going to be headhunted for committing fallacies yourself? Testing again for $2, thank you. Holly revisionism equals unacceptable. Truth matters. Yeah. Yeah. Theodore McCarthy, hello. $5, thank you. Communists, mass murder 100 million people. Centrist, that's just as bad as hurting the feelings of minorities. That's not centrist. How is that centrist? The right wing is the center. How is that reasonable? That is what an insane person believes. That's not reasonable. What is the center if that's the center? That's a capitulation to the left, which never works out.
Young men in the West, especially if you're a young white man, but pretty much all young men, have every right to be absolutely infuriated at the current establishment. And to be honest, if you're a young...
Now, where do we think that comes from? Magically across the entire West, that there's institutional racism in the truest sense and systemic racism against white people. That raise a red flag at all?
young women, you should actually be infuriated at it too, because what I'm about to talk about here negatively affects the ladies just as much, just indirectly. So if you're a woman born after 1980, you've probably wondered why it seems like so many men your age have just kind of given up and are completely disconnected and seemingly disengaged from the social system. And the answer is because that system actively hates them. The millennial and Gen Z white...
That system actively hates them. Now, who would be like one of the #1 candidates for hating Christians? You might think Islam, but Islam actually believe that Jesus Christ, like really, I think they're less hard on Jesus Christ than the fucking Moos are. The Moos really don't like the guy. And then against white people, and then that's the commies, right? And so here's the pincer, so to speak, the two-pronged approach where no matter what, the Moos are winning. The Moos allow the commies to run throughout society. I've shown several times on stream and in videos where no Mooish NGO has ever advocated for white people. They've only advocated for minorities. So this is aligning perfectly with quote-unquote progressives, commie sentiment. Black Lives Matter, they support Black Lives Matter. So they'll support them to be as radical as possible to antagonize Goy, to antagonize white, to antagonize Christian. And then we have the reasonable neocons come in and go, see, we don't agree with setting buildings on fire and letting in 10 million illegals and transing the kids. See how reasonable we are? It's like, well, that should be a given. Do you really deserve a pat on the back for believing that? And then we're stuck in between those two things, and we can never actually talk about, the effect of the anti-white sentiment. It's oppression, dude. How is it not oppression? I have no problem using their words to describe what's going on. It's the definition of oppression.
White male experience is growing up being constantly held collectively guilty and blamed for the alleged sins of the past you had no hand in.
Excellent. So we're being held collectively guilty. So we don't care about holding the Moos collectively guilty. Okay. And then you might think, oh, well, you're doing what they're doing. Yeah, we're not the same people. If a leftist has a gun and a right-winger has a gun, fucking same thing gonna happen. It's the dumbest argument.
While also being told that you still benefit from all of those things, despite the fact that the power dynamics behind them were abolished after World War II and actually flipped during the Civil Rights era. This also comes with the experience of being constantly gaslit about it. A good simple example of this is being told you have privilege through greater access to things like respect and education, when in reality, being a young white male in the age of white guilt means you get discriminated against in college admissions and are constantly being told by...
You see, now this is what's annoying, because like, when I was more so an anti-communist and not like right-wing, I'm like, why is anti-white sentiment, white guilt, why is that allowed to be the mainstream narrative? Like my entire life. And I couldn't answer that until I went right-wing. I found out, this goes a little deeper than just having white guilt that's leading to like people not reproducing. Pretty huge issue, don't you think?
Leftist media about what a shitlord you are for being who you are. And it really needs to be stressed how surreal this is and how obviously fraudulent it should appear to any rational person. Because when you examine it closely, you realize that this message is completely self-contradictory. The establishment is essentially berating you and hating you for controlling
the establishment. Now, why does the establishment... We just accept that the establishment is specifically targeting the majority populations across the West. The establishment, it's the globalists.
the establishment, but wait, the very fact that they hate you is proof that you don't control the establishment. And indeed, if you look into things like Curtis Yarvin's analysis of academia and media, which he calls in The Cathedral, said establishment reveals that it's created various power structures and bureaucracies that is overwhelmingly leftist, which has been proven to have an anti-white bias. The TLDR of it is the result is you, as a young white dude, you grow up being the only population group where it is considered politically correct to hate you for who you are, and you're constantly being told that you have the privilege of not being hated for who you are.
So this is where somebody becomes extra frustrated with Mentis, right? He's understanding this. He's so close, he's not going the extra step because he doesn't want to be anti-Semitic, because the witch hunt works on him. Now, the issue is that you go, well, no. They're being crazy with it. They're just using it to do this to white people. But there's a really good faith interpretation of it. Is there really? If this is the effect of it? Guys, I'm not witch hunting, okay? But witches really do exist.
By the very people who are controlling the system and clearly hating you for who you are. It's insane. It's actually completely bonkers. There was a recent article on Compact that kind of highlights the insanity. Lost Generation from Jacob Savage did a relatively large deep dive into the effects of DEI being institutionalized. The TLDR of it is that employers...
DEI institutionalized. Now, was that just in one country or was it globally? That's interesting. And what is DEI? What is diversity? Anti-white, less white people. So we're really hammering this point home before engaging in the JQ, right? And this is what's going to be frustrating to people that like, oh, okay, so he's not going to completely eat his balls on this. He has an idea of what's going on, so he couldn't possibly mess this up that badly.
Have been actively discriminating against young white men for quite a long time now, while the Cathedral blatantly lied through their teeth claiming that it wasn't happening, even though it very obviously was. And so it comes as no real shocker then that one of the memes you might have found on these image boards back in the day was this one. Congratulations, young white males.
Now, this fully encapsulates the issue and their frustration, okay? What's James Lindsay's solution? What's Mentiswave's solution? You'll see what Mentiswave's solution is in the next video. And it can't be real. It can't be real. He goes from a pseudo-intellectual to a 5-year-old in the next video, okay? But we'll crawl there.
The relatively successful destruction of the patriarchy in your generation and the homogenization of gender roles, you are now officially of no value to society. But wait, it gets better. Given that your fathers and grandfathers still benefit from their patriarchally given gifts, such as the ability to act like actual men in their social construct without repercussion, they won't have any freaking idea why you're such a dumb little screw-up because they exist in an alternative reality where they still freaking matter. Bonus gifts. Racism perpetuated by your fathers and grandfathers before you is still within the very real living memory of society, and you get to inherit the title of being utter freaking scum by merit of your gender/race without having actually participated in the evils they committed. Best of all, despite statistically being the most unemployed/hopeless bracket in the entire Western world right now, you're apparently super freaking entitled even though your gender role and racial identity have literally been burned to the ground. But guess what? No one freaking cares, and no one will care. Your parents, society, and women in particular cannot fathom how perpetually effed your role in the world is, and have no effing clue what could possibly be motivating you to stay inside and play freaking video games all day. Another thing that the groypers...
Okay, so fellas, hands that heel in the chat, okay? For all of that happening to white people, and we haven't gone on an insane murder spree in the past 20 years, okay? And so the criticism that white people are getting, it's like, well, you're getting a little carried away. Have you seen what's out in the streets? Have you seen the violence being enacted? Have you seen the institutional support the other side has? So he's going to say all of that and be like, so yeah, it's like it's shitty. It's literally ending bloodlines. They've ended bloodlines, okay? Whether not being able to afford stuff or actually giving kids puberty blockers, making them sterile. Like, in so many ways, it's so vile what they're doing. And we are questioning them, Mentis. And this question has been around for centuries.
Are correct about is that the Holy Church of Equality has a very large lie at the heart of it, which shows that one big problem with the global establishment is that they don't actually believe in the equality stuff that they're preaching, because a big part of their equality narrative is backed by one of the most insane fallacies to ever exist, which is a double standards fallacy that can be known as the great global grift of identity politics for we and not for thee. This is best summarized by this infamous post from Christopher Langan, where he makes...
So... Not to Fed Post, but maybe we need to go out and make them as scared of us as they claim to be. That can't work. We can't even do during COVID. First of all, it's immoral to go and do that, to enact violence like that. First of all, it's immoral. I hate what the left does where they'll disagree with that because it wouldn't work or it's optically bad, but they never say that it's immoral. No. That's immoral. It's unethical to go and do that. Not very liberal, according to my principles. Secondly, we couldn't even give haircuts during COVID without getting a fine, okay? This is asymmetrical warfare, but it's also a war of attrition, okay? This is a long war, and you must be resilient, okay? And the tides are very much turning right now. Also, the United States, that's it. After the United States, lost Australia, lost so many countries in Western Europe, the larger countries, the more influential countries. We just have the United States to challenge the Holly. That's it. After the United States, then we're done. Then we can consider alternatives after we lose the United States. But I think we may have already lost the United. Like, it's weird because like there's this back and forth going on in the United States that's been happening. You know how they shut down Pat Buchanan like 92, Moose hop on stage and call him racist. They've been playing both sides in the country, so we haven't completely lost it. But there's definitely a resurgence. Like even a year ago, you couldn't see these conversations mainstreamed. And boy, oh boy, here's what you got to realize. It might be bad for a long time, but boy, howdy, does stuff turn around real quick. And it's been turning around real quick. And you can ride the wave or stay a slave, baby.
It's the argument that identity politics can only be justified if everyone of every ethnicity is entitled to participate, and how the global order's refusal to acknowledge this problem may perhaps be one of the biggest pieces of evidence of their intellectual fraudulence. A big one that stands out is Chris Langan wrote, "Once we cease to treat individuals as individuals per se, thus allowing members of their respective groups to assert their ethnic, cultural, or religious identities against their quote-unquote oppressors, their group properties and statistics are automatically open to scrutiny and comparative analysis." This is something that the Church of Equality has repeatedly refused to do.
The Church of Equality, man, it's just the Church of Equality. It's just this, invisibly oppressive force that's instituting this on our lives. The Church of Equality.
Decreeing by holy order that collectivist scrutiny is only valid under the politically correct context that it is only white people who are to be collectively blamed for things, while against other ethnicities this is deemed unacceptable. And one thing I've personally noticed that's kind of interesting that I'd like to add to Christopher Langan's explanation here is that one of the most telling parts is that the Church of Equality's answer to this, the reasoning they use to justify it, is entirely circular. For example, if you were to point out this inconsistency to a random pew warmer of the...
Anyone ever feel like the moves are very circular? We cover them on stream a fair amount, and it seems like it just goes in circles, and it's almost like they try to bore you to death, which feels like the left, doesn't it? Same rhetoric over and over again, racist, anti-Semitic.
Cult of woke, and ask them how it is justified, why is it only whites are to be held to the standards of collectivist ethno-guilt, they will almost always go on to list all of the things that they view white people as collectively guilty for. Ma colonialism, ma Trail of Tears, ma Jim Crow, ma slavery. They'll go on to list all of these things that the whites have allegedly used to oppress everybody else for thousands of years. Which of course is...
Like, imagine if I spent 10 minutes talking to you about disproportionate black crime, and then in the next, 20 minutes, I was explaining to you how it's socioeconomic. You would be like, oh, now I'm extra frustrated with you because you acted like you understood the problem. And then your prescriptions for it or your analysis of it is like the left. That would make you more frustrated with me.
It's completely ridiculous because that's circular reasoning. They're just using collectivist ethno-guilt in order to justify using collectivist ethno-guilt. That's just begging the question.
Yeah, Goyim, that's just the entire world, but they really, this is the beauty. This is the irony, okay? You know how the left always says that, white people are afraid of black people rising up, and so that's why they oppress them? They always get out in front of it. They always accuse you of what they're guilty of. That's what the moos do to the whites, because they've seen what the whites can do. And it's coming back, baby.
And there's no actual starting point to their reasoning. And yet, despite this argument being demonstrably nonsensical, it's also scarily common. And so thus, academia is forced to contort itself in these kind of weird mental gymnastics and crazy...
Academia? You mean Marxist? In a huge disproportionate overlap of moos? in academia, I'm not going to put up all the examples of the anti-white books written by Mooish authors, okay? We know they exist. You should know that in 2002, less than an hour from me at Harvard, they published Abolish the White Race, okay? In Harvard Magazine in 2002. Academia, you know? Could be anybody.
Narratives to further justify their narrative, like claiming unironically that, oh, it's only racist when white people do it. Only white people can be racist. It's just so obviously on its face dumb. And groypers are one of the few groups.
That's not going to cut it, dude. It's dumb, you know? It's just stupid. It's kind of gay, right? Isn't it cringe what they're doing, what they've been doing to white people? You know, those Muslim grooming gangs in the UK for the past 30 years, where the police didn't say anything because they didn't want to be called racist. Dumb. Just dumb what they do to 13-year-old white girls. And then also try to give their rapist rights to see the kid. It's dumb, isn't it? Don't we have to go a little more past dumb? What would it take for you to call it something a little more forceful? A little more emotion in that than dumb, I wonder.
Groups that are actually willing to talk about this. For instance, in this post from Nick Fuentes, tribalism for Jews, blacks, and Indians, but universal principles for white people. And while Fuentes is wrong about a lot of things, on this one particular subject, he and the groypers are correct. The cathedral seems to think that they can engage in this finger wagging against the younger white generations whenever it comes to them having a collective.
Now, why are the Moos able to engage in finger wagging globally in dozens of countries, Mentis? Oh, sorry, was I asking a question? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to ask a question. How are they able to actualize this onto societies across the West? These are questions that we don't want answered. We can answer them, but we have to ask them as a question, okay? Because then we'll just be J-spurging if we tell you what's going on.
Identity, but then praises that kind of identity politics for every other group. And very few people are talking about just how completely jacked of a double standard that is. Which brings me to another thing the groypers get.
This is what the Moos do. There's over 9,000 Mooish NGOs in the United States. Not one advocates for white people. And I mean, I did the math. There is a Mooish NGO for every 563 Moos in the United States. There's a lot. And so even when you look at the income of a Moo, I mean, they hide a lot of their money in an NGO. Why wouldn't they? Why would they have all their money individually on paper?
Correct, which is the concept of per capita. One of the things that people engaged in that type of circular argument I just mentioned will go ahead with their white people bad rhetoric, is they'll point out that, oh, white men commit more crimes, therefore white people collectively guilty. Except it's not actually true when you consider per capita. This is probably...
And here is the record scratch, and he goes, you might have wondered how I got in this situation. Here's the per capita. Here's what he got hammered over.
The fastest way to detect if someone has zero mathematical reasoning skills. Ask them to imagine two buckets. One bucket has 20 apples in it and 2 of them are poisonous, and the other bucket has 1,000 grapes in it and 20 of them are poisonous. If you had to choose between eating 1 grape or 1 apple...
Just to clear this up from chat, it's a good question because we're not all fallacy farming. What was Mentis saying about Nawalt again? Not all X, I said it somewhere, are like that. So not all Moos are like that. Not all blacks are like that. That's what he means by the Nawalt fallacy. And he's going to say that he's not doing that fallacy and then immediately do the fallacy. This is a cognitive blind spot, right? That's not that he's dumb. It's a blind spot that you have. And you have a cognitive blind spot in this situation from manufactured propaganda since before your grandparents were born.
from their respective buckets, which bucket would you choose? If someone says that they'd rather eat an apple from the apple bucket because 2 is a lower number than 20, you are talking to someone who cannot be saved. Just straight up. Do not bother arguing with them. Do not bother trying to reason with them. Just wipe your hands of the conversation, walk away, save yourself some frustration. Another thing the groypers get correct is that the geopolitical establishment is fundamentally corrupt to the core. And this goes far beyond just the identity politics issue I mentioned earlier. They are corrupt to the core, period. For instance, they understand specifically in the United States that both the Republicans and the Democrats are corrupt. They don't exactly...
Yeah, like a uniparty, right? Now, what is the identity of that uniparty, right? I covered in the video that I made on this, where we've been sending economic aid to Israel since 1948, since they've been a country. We've been paying for their economy since it's been a country, okay? Now, you might think to yourself, how does a small country have the power to do that? As we've seen with the Epstein files, ravenous blackmail. You turn people into assets.
Get the reason why correct, a bit more on that later, but for the most part, groypers are correct in recognizing that political parties, pretty much all of them, are terrible. Every single Western democracy can be summarized as just voting for the lesser evil. And this is an issue I've kind of gone over before in an old video I did on boomer conservatism. To summarize it, the Republican Party and also a lot of other so-called conservative parties in other Western democracies like Canada and the UK, etc., well, they don't really conserve anything. Instead, they've largely just been, as many have put it, progressives driving the speed limit. They don't actually do anything to dismantle far-left bureaucratic control that generally tends to happen.
Yes, this is the point of the neocon. You let the... You know how China will allow TikTok in our country, but not their own country, right? You know the moos? You can't get married as an atheist in Israel. Obviously not gay marriage, but you can't get married as an atheist in Israel. It's a religious institution, okay? So they do all of this to Goy, and the communists are just a great source of that. Many of them mooish. Yeah, very disproportionately mooish. And so the neocons need to allow that antagonization constantly, so they cause it or allow it to happen, then they come in and slow it down. They come in and cause it. They come in and slow it down. And then if you try to stop that, you're racist and anti-Semitic. Are we understanding? Am I becoming a little repetitive? Well, it needs to catch on. Evan Lord, $10. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Ben Shapiro doomed American conservatism by kicking out parts of the right while accepting the far left so he could make money by dominating the left. It normalized far left ideas to society. What do you mean? He was against the whole gender thing. See? See how he's against the obviously insane parts of the left, while still not allowing or encouraging white people to collectivize, even though the moos get to have a very solidified identity, but the whites don't. And that is the criticism that no one can overcome. Testing, $2, thank you. I don't know any moo NGO that opposes mass migration. Yeah. They don't necessarily encourage it, even if they don't outright oppose it. I'm pretty sure, yeah. As if I just thought of all 9,000 NGOs. Yeah, let me think. 8,900. Yeah, that's all of them. Theodore McCarthy, $5. Thank you. The U.S. wasn't lost, just the institutions. Now that age has cleared out the boomers, things are changing very fast. They are changing very fast. This is a war of attrition. Testing, $2. Thank you. Academia, globalist, communists. So close. So close. The progressives, what does progressivism lead to? I mean, what are they progressing toward? Who made communism? Really think about it. Karl Marx was a moo. I'm pretty sure Lenin's grandfather may have been a moo. Modern Magnus, $10. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Imagine 2 buckets. Imagine 100 elves. Imagine a bear in the woods. Dude, he really says that in the next video, okay? I am slowly bringing us up to it, okay? Bro, operate in reality, please. Where there are effects to things. Please, I'm begging. Yeah. Remember the James Lindsay Death Butterfly? He has to go with these analogies. He goes, okay. And this is a bias within him. This is naive realism, where if people are disagreeing with him, he goes, well, let me explain it again. Why are you explaining it again if you don't understand why people are disagreeing with you? You've already shown that you cannot steelman the argument against what you're saying. So let me explain it again, because there's obviously something wrong with your brain. It's obviously something wrong with you, and that's why you disagree with me. And that is an act of hubris, where he knows he's right, because he's telling you what's correct and incorrect, right? Almost like an appeal to authority. Why is he the authority on this topic?
Whenever the more left-leaning parties are in power. Instead, whenever they're in power, they just kind of sit there and twiddle their thumbs and pass another billions of dollars of spending packages for foreign countries. And so when you go to the voting booth in Western democracies these days, you're really just either voting for
which disproportionate foreign countries do they give foreign aid to, Mentis?
For progressives and whatever they want, or you're voting for what the progressives wanted 20 or 30 years ago, aka which is what the Republican Party will do. The result of this is that if you're a millennial or a Gen Z, the feeling when it comes to the voting booth is that we don't really have a choice. And then on the side of the more left-leaning parties, the groypers are for the most part correct that they have been using immigration as a way to just increase their voter base. At least within the Democratic Party.
Do you see how nefarious these things are, by the way? Ruining the lives of white people very intentionally, replacing them through immigration, okay? And he's like, yeah, but your solution is flawed. Hey, Mentis, go fuck yourself, dude. Shit. Roll your sleeves up or get the fuck out of the way, dude. How do you acknowledge the problem is this bad and then be like, it's just dumb, though. I think you're getting carried away with disappearing from your own fucking countries.
Party of the United States, the basic grift strategy that they have undertaken is to just import people from the third world, get them hooked on welfare, offer more welfare, and thus they earn votes. And while groypers do tend to kind of underestimate just how bad the welfare problem is, they are at least correct in recognizing that voter base replacement is a strategy of the current establishment to maintain their power. Or a TLDR way to put it is that the groypers are effectively correct in their assessment that Western democracies are currently largely under the control of a...
Also, very good point from chat that I want to highlight. This is a YouTube chat. If you are trying to prove you are smart by having perfect grammar, you are wasting your time. Half these MFers can barely read. I don't read. So it's a very good point. This is a no reading zone. Everyone is guessing shapes in the chat right now.
Bunch of backstabbing, corrupt traitors. And thus they are one of the few political factions that is willing to meaningfully criticize that establishment by recognizing the need to attack that establishment even from your own side of the political compass and actually call out the...
Do we have some Mentiswave fans in chat? If so, just let me know what their names are so I can see what they're saying.
Military-industrial complex, along with the system that perpetuates it. So then, if the groypers are correct about the West's state of fallen, but as you might recall earlier in the video, I mentioned they offer a flawed solution to the problem, what exactly are those flaws? Well, now we can finally talk about what it is the groypers get wrong and why they get them wrong. The first flaw is that groypers go...
Okay, so imagine you're a white South African, okay? And he chronicles all of the horrible human rights abuses happening to you, okay? And then he goes, now let me tell you what the white South Africans are getting wrong. You're gonna be like, dude, stop trying to logic bro this. Cage Mushinjuro in the Rumble chat, Henlo for $10. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Very, very hard on the JQ, also known as the Jewish question. In a nutshell, the JQ is really just the tendency to blame most of the world's problems on the Jews, alongside often thinking that Jews secretly control much more of the entire world than what they let on. And when it comes to explaining why the JQ is incorrect, I often see a really big problem.
Now, do you see the midwittery of that statement? The JQ is incorrect. The question and criticism is incorrect, okay? Now, are you really steelmanning the JQ that's been around for centuries? And he names all of these problems, and he's like, well, it can't be the JQ because that's anti-Semitic. That's his cognitive blind spot. And unfortunately, a guy like this who just thinks he's correct and just thinks the JQ is incorrect doesn't seem like he's open to changing his mind. So I must shame this opinion he has. I'm not shaming his libertarianism. I'm not shaming his channel. I showed you in the beginning, I'm a fucking fan of him. I've watched hours and hours of his videos over the past 2 years. However, on this, you know, something that affects, like, the West. It's not just my country, okay? But I think of it this way. as a United States citizen, I am like the only person in the West, and including Australia. Canada can't speak about this. Australia can't speak about this. And then 20 countries in Europe can't speak about this. Okay? That is the issue. This is the last place where we can talk about it. So I feel a responsibility to talk about it. But it's incorrect. That is midwittery.
Coming from the establishment, which is that they'll just kind of brush it off and label those who are JQers as, oh, they're anti-Semitic and therefore they're wrong. And the thing is, as I mentioned earlier, that doesn't really work anymore.
Okay. So they're anti-Semitic, so they're wrong. And that isn't... do you hear what he said, though?
The whole thing...
That doesn't work anymore. See? What is the definition of a word? It's a strategy. Just like how Moodyism isn't a religion, it's a tactic. This doesn't work anymore. Yeah, this is why you have to deny the terms racism and anti-Semitism. They don't work anymore.
You're wagging and shaming and saying, oh, you're a racist.
Well, so this is an important point from chat. How in the Netherlands, yeah, still allowed to do it in the Netherlands for some reason. It's not no offense to the Netherlands, but that's not like a, massively influential country. They'll let, I mean, it's so funny where whenever the left talks about a better place than the United States is a place with a higher density of whites. So, I mean, I don't know if it's like that in Poland, probably Poland, but I mean, it's in the smaller white countries, the Moos don't really care to invade that, They really care about places of influence. And so you have to realize with the United States, the powerhouse of the world, we are going to be the most, attempted to be infiltrated country in the world. You think we'd be a little more like China and be really vigilant on that? Nope, we just let ourselves get subverted. Weird how we let ourselves get subverted when there's been a small group of people playing both sides of the fence, working for a foreign country, as he's acknowledged. He's so close.
You're a no good, very bad, mean person, bigot. It just doesn't work on the groypers. So what I'm
It just doesn't work on the groypers, right? Have you seen Peace and Quiet IO? Yes. And for any fellas that haven't, should I just go there real quick to shout it out? Let me do that real quick. Peace and Quiet.io. Now, this is in... There's no way I spelled it correctly. This is in an early stage of development, I believe. Fellas can check me on that. And this is an amazing idea. Also, if you find his the guy who made this, his reason for making it, it's about he tells a story of like a white guy whose wife went to Africa and he told her not to. She went there, she got murdered, and then when this dude was like 60, he got murdered by some young fellers with hard R's. Okay, it's a very harrowing story. But he takes aspects of culture, so to speak, and look at we have avoid, and look at this. Look at the data on this. Memphis. Oh yeah, that's an avoid. That's an avoid. And what are these characteristics that we have? Oh my God, top names. Oh my God, is he what? Dude, it's happening. This level of autism has only been reserved for the left and the moose for way too long. Violent crime. Oh, you can vote. Interesting. There's names. There's also characteristics like liquor stores. Here we go. Public housing, Section 8, methadone clinics, payday loans, beauty supply, Boost Mobile. Popeye. Oh, dude, that's great. So anyways, yes, I have seen it. Thank you for bringing that up. It's important to know about. And he the more data he gets, the better he's going to do. So contribute.
Going to do instead is I'm going to forget all that. Let's just calmly explain from a statistical and evidence-based standpoint why the JQ is a kind of dumb thing to believe. Why you should.
Evidence-based standpoint. Okay. Now, is all evidence Good evidence? I don't think so.
Shouldn't be blaming the Jews for everything. There's a lot of reasons why the JQ is wrong, and yes, there is the moral aspect of it's just kind of wrong from an ethics standpoint to hold people collectively guilty for alleged crimes of the group, but there's many other issues. The first problem is that most Jews, at least in the United States, are not meaningfully different than non-Jewish white liberals, especially amongst the elite.
Not so evidence-based, right? But the claim is not meaningfully different. Now, the Moos have a matrilineal lineage, where if you are born a Moo, you are a Moo forever, okay? Even if you're mixed with something else, okay? They want French Moos, they want German Moos, and then this is how they have connections in other countries. No meaningful difference. Well, one's allowed to have a cohesive group, and one isn't. It's pretty meaningful.
For example, a common silly meme you might see in right-wing spaces that accept the JQ online is they will link to some journalist article that has some incredibly dumb trash of opinion, often spouting the id pull for we but not for thee contradiction I mentioned earlier, and they'll just point to the coincidence.
Now, do you see how he's just kind of hand-waving these things, right? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, look at how many there are. Yeah, but it's not all. Well, God, there it is. Well, it's not all Moos. Yeah, nobody ever. Okay, well, do you know what a goyim is, dude? Do you know how they like? This is the same thing Lenin said with communism, where communism needs to be built with non-communist hands. Communists use liberals, Moos use white progressives. Meaningful difference, I would say.
It's that, oh, look, it was written by a Jew. But the problem is you're just as likely to find this in upper middle class white liberal areas. And these articles are actually written by non-Jewish white elites more than they're written by Jews. Sure, there's a disproportionate amount of Jews writing these things.
Now, he just did it. Now, there's more, yeah, but there's more white people. And then he goes, ooh, shit. Like, did you write this or say it off the cuff? Uh-oh. Oh, it's disproportionately Mooish.
But really, it's the ideology, not so much some unique problem with the Jews.
It's the ideology. Now, so this is what makes it Midwit. Is he really thinking deeply about it, right? It's a very surface level analysis of what's going on. It's the establishment. It's the Church of Equality. It's the ideology. Okay, well, we should kind of look into what that ideology is, since you just spent 15 minutes listing all of these targeted ways of oppression against white people, but we're just going to hand wave that. Okay.
In fact, most Jews actually self-identify as white. And so when you see stuff like this, it's actually more accurate to say that white people in the elite class have a kind of self-ethnic hatred problem. They feel guilty for having...
I'm sorry. Give me that again.
Not so much some unique problem with the Jews. In fact, most Jews actually self-identify as white.
What? So most Moos, this is the trans argument, they self-identify. Well, like, is this or is this not the JQ right now? Where they hide their identities, they change their last names. And so that's how they're subversive. Yeah, but they call themselves white. Yeah, that is the JQ. That's incredible. Stacking it stage for $2. 2 pseudo-intellectual Redditor bucks for my leech. Thank you. Much appreciated. Testing $2. One group's been blamed for centuries. Think why? No. If everywhere you go, everyone's the asshole, then everyone's the asshole. You're never the asshole. Actually, wait a minute. I got it. I'm riding solo tonight. Give me a moment.
Jews have been kicked out of every country we've ever lived, and it's never been our own fault.
One more time.
Jews have been kicked out of every country we've ever lived, and it's never been our own fault.
Wow. They actually say that. I love it.
And so when you see stuff like this, it's actually more accurate to say that white people in the elite class have a kind of self-ethnic hatred problem.
A self-ethnic hate. People just randomly hate themselves for absolutely no reason. Isn't that incredible? Aramaic Discourse for $10. Thank you so much, my dude. I really appreciate it. Look up what happened to the white guy who ended apartheid in South Africa. Absolutely brutal end to a man who firmly believed in progressive libtardism. Over and over and over again. And then, I mean, we see this in the United States where a white, that white progressive with her boyfriend and he got stabbed by a black guy, and it's like, well, he just needed food vouchers and he wouldn't have killed my boyfriend. Dude, that's a cult. I'm sorry. That's bad and dumb. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to feel too much emotion about that.
They feel guilty for having what they consider to be white privilege, and they believe that by becoming a progressive trash lib, they can absolve themselves of that guilt. And it's not something at all that can be uniquely blamed on Jews. For example, a Pew Research poll back in 2020 showed that the net Jewish is about 50% liberal, 32% moderate, and 6%.
This is based on 4,300 people. It's a survey. It's a study. This is what the left does. Well, I have a study. Yeah. So it's a very small portion of the population that you're then, what do you think my study would look like if I don't know, asked 4,300 blacks a question, Do you think I could get 100% on certain things? How accurate is that really?
16% conservative. Interestingly enough, this also shows something that you normally wouldn't expect if you just listen to JQers, which is that it's the Jews who are less religious who are...
Oh yeah, by the way, the Orthodox is conservative, right? Neocon. Going the speed limit conservative.
Actually more liberal. And Orthodox Jews are actually 60% conservative. So the majority of Orthodox Jews actually lean kind of right. And in terms of finances, most Jewish households earn less than 150K, with the most standard being somewhere between 50 to 150K.
What? Can someone tell me what the point of this was? So he sets this whole thing up about how whites are 100% being oppressed intentionally by the system, by the globalists, by the establishment. And now I'm sorry, would this be a straw man? Like, who talked about the general income of the moose? Who has made this argument?
Nearly half of all Jews earn somewhere around that. And the thing is, if we compare this to non-religious whites, we kind of see similar numbers.
If we compare it to non-religious whites, I'm just realizing this right now, didn't he say that a lot of moos identify as white? So even if he's getting studies on moos, even in the white, there still could be moos. Is that concerning to your data set at all, Mentis?
Another Pew Research study around 2024 showed very similar things. Non-religious whites favor the Democrats in a 20...
Does anyone care about these studies? It's a small sample size of the population, and okay, and sure, it's evidence. Is it germane to the criticism? 200 years ago, when they were talking about the JQ, they were like, what is the average income? Right? That's what they were thinking of.
8 to 68 split, or low religiousness as they put it. And the thing is, atheists in general tend to have similar economic splits. An additional study from 2023 found that atheist households, well, the vast majority of them are also earning over 50K or more. And if you look at elite universities, you'll find that a lot of non-Jewish white elites have a similar mentality and similar ideology. They tend to be less religious, more liberal leaning, and of course they generally will be earning more money. Are you really finding these coincidences in the Jews here? Or really...
Well, okay. What is the point exactly?
Are these coincidences just patterns that you would expect to find as the logical conclusion of Euro?
Okay, I think I understand. This is the argument. This is the issue with the free market, fellas, okay? They think there's a free market, right? They think there's anything actually organic in society when in fact it's been heavily manufactured. I think that's the bias. For him to believe in economics, he has to believe that the market is actually free and not controlled and manipulated, right?
Centric atheism. Because when you control for that, when you look at Orthodox Jews, the Jews who actually practice Judaism, these claims tend to go away. So it would seem that what JQers are looking at is actually just white liberal atheism. And this immediately calls into question one of the basic assumptions of the JQ.
It's just white liberal atheism. Okay. Why? How does that explain? How does that explain? Hold on. How does that explain anything, though? Look at his picture. Oops. Sorry, Goy. Oopsies.
Eurocentric atheism.
Eurocentric atheism?
Patterns that you would expect to find as the logical conclusion of Eurocentric atheism.
Eurocentric. I'm pretty sure a lot of these people are anti-Eurocentric. Is he saying it's Eurocentric to hate yourself? That's odd. He thinks white people, just genetically and organically hate themselves? bizarre.
Because when you control for that, when you look at Orthodox Jews, the Jews who actually practice Judaism, these claims tend to go away. So it would seem that what JQers are looking at is actually just white liberal atheism. And this immediately calls into question one of the basic assumptions of the JQ. If these numbers were totally different, if we saw Jews earning something like 90% of Jews drastically out-earning everybody else for no apparent reason, then maybe the JQ could start shaking a stick. But the problem is most Jews, your average...
Oh, okay. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. It would be different if it's like 90% of them. Okay, well, it's disproportionate. Okay, well, what if it was 90% black people? I mean, committing homicides. Like, well, it's disproportionate no matter what, because it's a smaller amount of the population. And his rebuttal is that what?
Judaism, these claims tend to go away. So it would seem that what JQers are looking at is actually just white liberal atheism. And this immediately calls into question one of the basic assumptions of the JQ. If these numbers were totally different, if we saw Jews earning something like 90% of Jews drastically out-earning everybody else for no apparent reason, then maybe the JQ could start shaking a stick. But the problem is most Jews, your average Jewish...
But the problem is most moos. You want to know what this reminds me of? Who here remembers the mostly peaceful argument? Over 93% of BLM protests have been peaceful. Now, when this came out, did you guys actually look at that study? Because your boy over here did. Me. I'm your boy. Already, it's me. I did. This is from the ACLED. The Armed Conflict. Where is it? What the hell are you? Armed Conflict Location and Event Data. Okay. Now, of course, their data is routinely used and referenced by the United Nations. Okay. Now, this is a global organization. Of course, they're a nonprofit. Of course, they're an NGO. Who are their key funders? Well, the United Nations, the U.S. Department of State, Dutch Ministry of Foreign. So they just get money from governments all over the world to tell you that the BLM riots were 93% peaceful and they influence the UN. So they get paid to make a dumb study like that. Now, here's what you probably didn't do. You probably didn't crack it open, okay? I did, and I cracked it open while shit was popping off. Now, you'll notice the orange is the riots, and this dumb color is the protest, right? So, look at these big orange circles. So, in certain areas, right, it wasn't 7% riots. In certain areas, it was 50% riots, 60% riots. Yeah, but what about in Idaho? Yeah, but what about in Utah? Well, I'm really focused on Portland, Oregon. I'm focused on Washington State, Seattle. I'm focused on areas of California where there's disproportionately high riots, even in Arizona. You know, I'm thinking about here in Missouri. Look at these orange areas. This is what we're focused on, okay? Now, Mentiswave is doing the 93% peaceful fallacy, isn't he? He's like, what about all the times that it isn't happening? Okay, we're trying to talk about all the times that it is happening. Okay, dude? Feel a little bit, a little lefty trickery right there.
Household shows similar patterns of every other American household. The majority of Jews are living in a middle-class home, in a middle-class family, and they have a variety of views rather than being a monolith of views, and they haven't actually done anything wrong. And so this isn't just a NAWALT fallacy. The vast majority of Jews are just regular people. And this is why it's kind of dumb to be anti-Semitic. It's not just sort of a, oh, well, it's mean to be anti-Semitic thing.
So, you see how he just says it's dumb? It's dumb. Is that even a criticism? Are you listening to a person with intellectual rigor, with a hard R? If that's just saying, hey, see, that's why it's just dumb. Like, that's not a meaningful critique. that's just leaving you open to be criticized. You're just calling it dumb. It's not a sound argument that really proclaims anything.
It just doesn't really make much sense. It's not like all of the Jews are wielding some kind of secret power so that they're...
This is what the left does all the time. The left strawmans your position, makes an argument you didn't make, and then goes, that's a dumb argument. It's like, yeah, the argument you just made up is really dumb. And then he projects that dumb argument onto nobody. You made up the dumb argument and then called it dumb. Now, that is grounds to call you dumb.
all living in giant golden palaces while everybody else starves. That's not how the world works. That's not what's going on at all in any way. And if you ever dig deep into this, it's pretty much the same thing all the way down. If you look at white liberal elites who are non-religious, who are not Jewish, and then you compare them to Jews, they show very, very similar numbers. Another issue with the JQ is just general statistical reasoning errors like the fallacy of averages and just the general issues of low sample size. Because
the general issues of low sample size, you know, like every study that he's looking at and then repeats it like it's a fact. All that study is an indicator, essentially, right? Polls, getting opinions for a low sample size and having to extrapolate onto the rest of the country. But he repeats it as fact on a low sample size. But what does he say now? The fallacy is a low sample size. Like, well, how do you point out a disproportionate amount of people doing something? You would be pointing out that in high positions of power, yes, yeah, how large of a sample size do you need when they're 50% of certain demographics, or 40% or 30%?
like the fallacy of averages and just the general issues of low sample size. Because Jews, at least in the United States, have just about always made up less than 3% of Americans. And so when you have really low sample sizes, you can end up saying some really weird stuff like, oh, Jews are 600% overrepresented in X. But if there's not that many of them, then it really could just be an issue of one of them blowing the average. So for example, JQers will point to things like Jewish overrepresentation in political donors, overrepresentation in...
Now I love this, okay? So now he's going to, again, understand the argument and point out all the disproportionate representation. Okay, here we go.
At many of them, then it really could just be an issue of one of them blowing the average. So for example, JQers will point to things like Jewish overrepresentation in political donors, overrepresentation in Congress, large presence in the corporate media, and large presence in academia. And yes, it is true, Jews have a disproportionate representation in all of these things. But it doesn't really imply what JQers think it implies. And if you recall what I said earlier about Jewish household income and percentage of Jewish population, the reason why will become kind of obvious to you. If again, most...
It doesn't imply what they think it implies. Why don't you? Okay, well, just go ahead and say it. We're obfuscating right now. How are they wrong?
Jews are just random, ordinary, regular Americans and aren't actually making that much.
I'm sorry. I know it's not all of them, but how many of them?
If again, most Jews are just...
Oh, you see, it's not all of them. See how most of them are like this? It's incredible, dude.
Random, ordinary, regular Americans and aren't actually making that much more money than average and are almost just virtually identical to white liberal elites who are non-religious. Well, it's actually just financially not possible for all of the Jews to be involved in all of the donations. It is true that an absolutely insane amount of donations that both...
Now he actually says the word all. This is why he's a teacher that says no phones in class and silence your phones, and his phone just rang.
Who are non-religious. Well, it's actually just financially not possible for all of the Jews to be involved in all of the donations.
It's not possible for all of the moves to be involved in all of the donations. Okay, dude? That's why you're being made fun of.
It is true that an absolutely insane amount of donations that both the Democrats...
It is true that an absolutely insane amount. Dude, he just can't, he doesn't want to seem anti-Semitic. What else would it be?
And the Republicans are receiving is coming from a Jewish source. Again, it's definitely disproportionately Jewish, you can't deny that. However, that's mostly just coming from random Jewish individuals who are very, very rich, giving very large donations. And that just kind of breaks the average. In truth, most Jewish donations...
White people that are very, very rich still often use that money in service of moos and not white people. Do you understand that? Moo make a lot of money. Moo help moo. White person make a lot of money. White person still help moo. do we see the issue? And with the Epstein files, we've seen our suspicions have been confirmed. A lot of blackmail going on. Turn people into assets. They groom people into, you know, finding out what their inclinations are, putting them in a position to do those inclinations. Hedonistic people. You know, this is why, you know, Christians, immoral people that are not hedonistic are of no use. Hard to subvert them. Real Christians
are your just random Jewish middle American family donating $15 to their local election or something. So this isn't a NAWALT fallacy I'm making again here. I'm not saying, oh, well, not all.
This isn't the NAWALT fallacy. See, what he says is correct, and he tells you what's incorrect. So as long as he's saying he's not doing the fallacy, well, he's not doing the fallacy.
Or something. So this isn't a NAWALT fallacy I'm making again here. I'm not saying, oh, well, not all Jews. No, legitimately, the vast majority of Jews are not involved in this. Over 90% of Jews have virtually nothing to do with what goes on in Washington, D.C. The overwhelming majority of Jews do not actually have the financial power to do what JQers are accusing them of doing.
Who on earth says that it's all of them? The issue, okay, is that you see in James Lindsay's comments, it's all moos that are supporting him. They rally around. They don't have to have the money when they have a synagogue, when they have an NGO where they can get resources from. Okay, there's billions of dollars in their NGOs, and as we've seen with NGOs on the left, you just have to pass that money through a couple of hands, and you can do whatever you want with it, dude. Okay, come on, dude. You're better than this.
Same thing with the media. A lot of times JQers become JQers because they see the level of Jewish representation in the media. And initially, if you don't think about it much, it does kind of raise an eyebrow. And so JQers will often post these very large images.
Oh God, here we go. Fellas, had to take a short 5-minute break right now, as is customary for the stream. What I'm gonna have you watch in the meantime, dude, I'm blessed. Can you guys stop praying for me? All right, it's working too much. I'm gonna give you Remnant 777 in one of my favorite videos he's ever made. I'm only going to be gone for like 5 minutes, okay? Yeah, I'll be right back.
Today, we will be looking at the most obnoxious, unlikable, pretentious phenotype out there, the mid-witted pseudo-intellectual. I mean, they're literally what you would get if you took the actually meme and turned it into a literal person. And to clarify, for those who don't know, a midwit is someone who's of average intelligence, and they think of themselves and present themselves as someone of higher intelligence, which is seen in this meme of the midwit. Then after that, we have this pseudo-intellectual. This person is deceptive, they pretend to be knowledgeable or intelligent, while they are somebody who lacks genuine depth and understanding of a subject. Now, these are two distinctly different things, but they have a lot of overlap. And a lot of the traits we just covered, they're generally seen in the same people. And as somebody who has a lot of experience with these people in general, I believe I have a very good understanding of them. I know how they operate, why they behave the way that they do, and how to spot them. But here's the thing, plenty of videos already have gone over this. They've covered this exact same topic. And I would say that they're very valuable. And for the sake of not regurgitating that same information, think of this video as an addendum to their work and not the end-all be-all. Firstly, we have to understand them, know exactly what drives them. And at their core, they are very antisocial people who are extremely insecure. That is where a lot of their obnoxious behavior stems from. Now, let me give you an example here. Let's say that you were talking to one of these midwits and you said, "The weather outside looks beautiful." Off of that statement alone, they're going to rush into it and say, "Yes, it is." And that happens because of the high pressure systems over our heads. You see, the clear skies happen when the air sinks instead of rising in the way that the sunlight scatters through the atmosphere and makes it look brighter. Oh, we haven't even talked about what do you even mean by beauty and how we can prove what beauty is at the end of the day. Oh my word. Just shut up. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit about whatever you're saying right there. We have all had this happen to us. We've had this person who goes on an extremely long tangent that nobody cares about, just for the sole purpose of demonstrating how much they've read on Wikipedia. And the reason why they do this is because when you interact with them, is what is always at the center of their mind is, how can I take this opportunity to show the people around me how smart and knowledgeable I am? Which at the end of the day is rotten to the core because it is only self-serving. And people can sense this. We all sense this coming a mile away and we hate it, which ties into the key aspect of pseudo-intellectuals, why they're feigning knowledge, wisdom, or intelligence. They don't learn the things that they do because it's useful to implement it into their own lives. No, they don't care about that. What they care about is using it to impress the people around them, which is just fake and shallow at the end of the day. Everybody hates it. And the way we know that it's true is because if you pay attention to a person's actions, it will tell you what they actually care about, what they value, what their goal is with their interaction with you. If you and me, we were talking to each other and I stopped to listen to you, I start to ask questions about you, I hear you out. This is my way of conveying without words that I care about you. I care about the things you're saying to me. You deserve my attention. That's what you're showing with your actions. Well, on the other hand, if I just ignored you, I talked over you, I just went on long, irrelevant tangents about the things I know, that is my way of saying to you, you are unimportant to me. What I truly care about is not you, but it's how I appear to you. You see what I'm getting at? This is one simple example to explain the lens in which we need to view these things. If you use this lens to view all social interactions between people, you will have a better understanding of people in general. And it's through this lens that we can examine some of the stereotypical behavior of these midwits. One common example is the nitpicking behavior. It could be you make a small typo, you mispronounce something, and they'll hone in on that and use it against you. While in reality, it's not an issue. Everybody knew what you meant. We could let it slide and it wouldn't change anything. But the midwit, the pseudo-intellectual, they will not. These people will never miss an opportunity to pop in and show, actually, this is the correct way you say it. This is what you actually mean. And at the end of the day, this action, it doesn't aid in the conversation. It doesn't aid in clarifying anything to anybody. And it is nothing more to these people than an opportunity to showcase how much they know at your expense. Again, you got to remember what is at the forefront of their mind. Look at me. Look at how much I know. Shut up and pay attention to me. Look and see how smart I am. And what is so ironic at the end of the day is they characteristically don't even understand what they're talking about. It's all surface level. I tell you, one time I was talking to a guy and he asked me what I do. And I told him I do freelance video editing because that is what I was focusing on at the time. And instantly he jumped in and said, "Oh, you should go to Fiverr. I heard there are people who make a lot of money on there. You should try it out. You should do the smart thing and let the business come to you rather than seek it out yourself." And I politely told him, that's not how it works. You can't just simply make a Fiverr account and expect it to work from there. I've looked into this as a freelancer. It's a lot harder than you make it out to be. It's not that simple. But he didn't listen. He said, no. Trust me, I've seen it. You can just make an account on there and you'll blow up. Trust me. I mean, just try it out. Can't hurt, right? And we went back and forth and we were talking about this until I finally asked him and said, wait, have you ever done any video editing yourself or any commissions? And he said, no, I haven't. And then I asked him again, have you done any work on Fiverr? And then he said, nah, man, but I've heard people do really well on it. And then I instantly realized right at that moment, I wasted my whole time talking to this fucking idiot who doesn't know anything he's talking about, who's telling me what I should do. And what's worse is if you stop to think about it, you realize these people don't care about you at all. Again, all of this is performative. The only thing he really cared about and wanted to hear was for
of a brilliant editor. As an editor, I am studying that man. I just don't want to take the time to do it. I'm just lazy. That man puts in the work. He puts in the effort. He also messed with Alec Gunter. I will let you know. I was the first person to trash Alec Gunter, and he actually recorded his debate with him, trashed him really good. Ah, what a great night. Here we go.
That contain a bunch of pictures of people who are in various positions in the media and how a lot of them are Jewish. And the problem is you could do this for a lot of other ethnic groups in the United States. For example,
here's the both sides. Here's the James Lindsay both sides. You know, it happens. This thing isn't unique. It happens in other situations too.
The same logic of Jewish representation in the media can also be used against Irish representation in bank ownership. Fun fact, there's actually a very common Irish parody of the JQ, where instead of showing a picture of a bunch of Jewish people in various positions of authority in various organizations, they'll instead show a bunch of Irishmen. And the reason you can make these images is really just simply because there's hundreds of millions.
Yeah, we know how the Irish have the IDL, you know? They have all these NGOs for Irish interests. and they suppress other groups of people through these NGOs.
Millions of people in the country. Major corporations have thousands of managers, executives, and various directors of whatever. It's not actually as impressive as it seems. And again, the majority of Jews have nothing to do with it. Another weird, also kind of dumb issue with the Jewish question.
Weird, kind of dumb issue. Pinnacle of intellectual thought over here. Okay. A rat named Mouse, $2, thank you. Make a post after this and use it as a study, right? What sample size? Well, but that's why I like crime statistics. The sample size is all of the people. It's the largest sample size you can have. That's a meaningful stat to me. Blue Lick, $5, thank you. Show me whether moos are L or R wing. Does not mean that they don't see you as cattle, exactly. Whether they don't want to push poison onto you. Exactly, that is the criticism. That is the question that we have over and over again. Vexy baby, $5, thank you very much. It's all a mind-twisting straw man. Worse than that, Mentis is doing some serious doublethink. Well, when you're calling out people for their fallacious thinking, you better be very sound in what you're saying, and at least couch your language not so absolute where you go, this is correct, this is incorrect. Testing, $2, thank you. He stops understanding per capita, but just for the moves, that is a cognitive bias. That does not mean he's dumb. It means that he can't let him, he just can't, he's not free in his own mind, you know? Lulbert, $5, thank you. 2 of my Oshis are fighting. No one, these people aren't he's not fighting me, okay? I'm not fighting him. I'm a fan of his content, all right? It's no fighting. I'm criticizing something that not just I'm seeing. It's a thing that a lot of people are seeing, you know? TK, $5, thank you. Elite analysis has the drawback that elites are a small population by definition. Lots of incidental correlations, also real correlations.
Oh, correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation fallacy. Hey!
Arden Party, best mod in the game. Fight me. $2, thank you. Cheap ad like the stream. Find Arden on X and on Rumble. Hell yeah.
Is that a lot of the JQ arguments really do mirror the kind of arguments that you might see from the cult of woke in the left. I don't believe in the term the woke right. I've argued before why it's a bad idea to disconnect the idea of woke.
Now, he made a video on how the woke right is dumb, okay? He did do that, but he's kind of borrowing the epistemology right now, isn't he?
Wokeness from any kind of specific ideology, but it is absolutely true that some elements of far-right ethno-nationalism absolutely do make similarly bad arguments.
Far-right ethno-nationalism. Do we have any examples of just right-wing ethno-nationalism that's not far, that's not ultra, that's not super spooky? It's always far, it's always ultra. It's never allowed to be moderate. The right wing is the center.
It's sort of like lefty Prague woke scolds might make. For example, I've seen groypers on X or various other discussion forums where their counter-argument is simply, you are Jewish, and that's it. They'll just say that somebody is Jewish.
Now, this is what James Lindsay does, where he finds a random anon. Can you believe Groyper1488 said that you're Muish? Can you believe it? That's your evidence. You think you're making a strong case, really. Look it, see? Look, someone said it. Uh-huh. What does that prove?
Jewish, accuse them of being a Jew, and then they'll imply that them being a Jew refutes their argument. It's like a very weird, identity-specific version of the ad hominem fallacy.
Of the ad hominem fallacy. It comes down to how, like, if you're not willing, if they just make fun of you. What do you want them to write? A dissertation in the comments? How many more links do you want them to send you? Yes, they have moo fatigue. Absolutely. And so they're online, they're on the shitter, and they go, moo. You idiot. But that's evidence.
And as dumb as that is, you can find the woke left doing the same thing, but with white people. I have absolutely seen people in far left progressive circles like Hassan Abi's viewer base, where they'll make the same argument, but they'll just say, oh, you're white. And that's it. That's their argument. You're white.
What about the people that have an actual in-depth argument? Like, I don't know, Nick Fuentes, and that's why he's become so popular? Wouldn't that be steelmanning it instead of strawmanning it? Yeah, but a portion of the audience says that you're dumb. Yeah, that's your intellectual takeaway. That's you got to listen to this guy talk about the groypers. Okay, I mean, wouldn't a CNN groyper correspondent go? They call people moos in the comments. Who is his audience that he's saying this to?
Or you're wrong. And it's very silly because a lot of times groypers are able to understand why this is a very, very, very bad argument when it comes from the woke left. But then they'll turn around and they'll attack a random Jewish person with the same bad argument. Or another thing they'll do is they'll point to Jewish overrepresentation in various positions of authority, be it in corporations or in government, and they'll conclude that that means that the Jews are oppressing white people, which is...
Well, they have a World Mooish Congress. There's the ADL. There's like many international Mooish NGOs that get together. We have an anti-Semitism czar in the United States now. Do we have an don't make fun of Irish czar? Mentis? See how it's... he's doing like the numbers thing that James Lindsay does, where these are just non-human variables and must exist equal and opposite on other sides, removing any nuance and context. But don't worry, the next video that he made as a cope is going to be very nuanced, apparently.
It's also kind of silly because it's the same messed up logic that black nationalist woketoids use. They've just swapped the races out. They're replacing whites with Jews and blacks with whites. So for instance, you might see a black nationalist make the argument that, oh, there's a lot of white people in Congress, a whole bunch of white men, therefore black people oppressed. And therefore...
Well, they say, to get out in front of it, that whites collectivize, when in fact, it's the moos that collectivize. Now, they also say, oh, capitalism. Now, what they mean when they say capitalism is the moos. That's greedy. That only cares about money. Like, they always get out in front of it, always guilty of what they accuse you of.
All the whites are involved in a mass global conspiracy to keep the black man down and be oppressing us and stuff. It's exactly the same fantastic.
Right, but they're not keeping the black man down, and you've already talked about how they are keeping the white man down. So you've set up an argument that they are keeping the white man down. See, with the JQ, it's true. And this is what James Lindsay has an issue with. With the woke left, what he was saying about them was true. Saying it about the woke right isn't true. Now, I'm sorry if I'm talking to you like a kindergartner, but you're a moo. See, that's why you are mooish. This is the fatigue that happens and why someone would say that.
Fantastically ridiculous argument. They're just blaming the Jews instead of blaming the whites. I've even seen some groypers use the same arguments that woke lefties will use in regards to white privilege, but on Jews. For example, you may have heard when a woke scold is talking about more white privilege that, okay, not all white people are in positions of Congress, but all white people benefit from it. You know, that kind of argument. And I've seen groypers do the same thing. They'll be like, okay, well, not all Jews are in various positions of influence and authority in various organizations in the government and whatnot, but all Jews benefit from it. And the thing is,
Hey, did you guys know that Jonathan Ferguson said all moos benefit from the mooish mafia? There's not even like how many people looked at it. Now, is this dishonest? Notice how he didn't show how many likes, how many times it was viewed. Like, okay, someone said this. Is it any one of them? Like, at least have Nick Fuentes saying that, right? That would be actual evidence to what he's saying instead of just random people. This is what James Lindsay does, dude. But it's the same bias against the moos. If you think anti-Semitism exists, you have to find a random person on the internet to have a proof of what you're saying.
It's just not really true. For instance, going back on the statistics I shared earlier, there's a good portion of Jews there, around 10%, who's earning less than 30K. If working class Jews are benefiting from it, it's probably safe to say that they're not really benefiting from it that much, at least not in any kind of real meaningful way.
Now, think of it this way. How do black people benefit from racism? Now, sometimes it's money, there's race grifters, but also in terms of protection. How do trans people benefit from transphobia? Well, sometimes they do a transcript and they get money, but also protection. Gay protection. These are protected classes, which is not liberal. It's a red guard. These people are afforded extra protection in society. So all moos benefit, not monetarily necessarily, and also they hide money in NGOs and they can distribute it whenever they want. The money's hidden. But anti-Semitism protects all moos. So it does, but it's not beep boop bop boop beep numbers protection.
way. And so while I do disagree with the term woke right, it's definitely true that there is a problem of a collectivist right, where they use the same kind of collectivist, ecological, and compositional fallacies, but in favor of white identity while demonizing Jewish identity, instead of other forms of collectivism. Which brings me to kind of a side problem of the Jewish question, which is that perhaps the biggest problem with the JQ is that it's kind of an oversimplification of what's really going on in the world. Because the thing is, a lot of times groypers or just general JQers, they'll just focus on a problem simply.
This is actually a good question. If somebody could look this up, I wonder how many top 100 billionaires are Moos. If someone can look that up, that would be fantastic.
Because there's a Jew at the head of the organization or something. Or they'll complain about Jewish donors and complain about AIPAC, or complaining about the amount of money that the American
Don't you love that? Complain about AIPAC? Is that unreasonable?
taxpayer is forced to pay, which is then just immediately given to the Israeli government. And on some pedantic level is correct. Yes, the American taxpayer should not be forced to fit the bill for all of Congress's pet projects. But the thing is, groypers only focus on the ones done by the Jews. And by doing this, they ironically end up underestimating the amount of corruption that goes on in Washington, because they're weirdly laser focused on the Jews only. For example, the United States in foreign assistance.
Well, the Moos are weirdly laser focused on all of the issues you mentioned that white people are going through. Oddly hyper laser focused, I would say. TK $5. Guest request, Dr. Stormy Waters. I don't really do guests, but I'll check them out. New GM $5. Thank you. When you say it's a red guard, I just think of Skyrim. It really butters my kippa. Sorry, dude. Sorry, fella. Didn't mean to butter your kippa.
Can spend roughly between 1 to 7 billion on Israel in any given year. And yes, that's a lot of money in terms of foreign assistance. But the problem is it's nowhere near the
best mod in the game. Fight me. Ardent Party. It looks like 9%. So 276 out of 3,500, which is pretty incredible. Okay. There's such a, I know, but here's the thing, is they use that money within themselves, and then also other billionaires that are non-Mooish also aid and abet the projects that they like. How do you think they infiltrate other countries so much? It's incredible.
Total spending amounts. Like, for example, in 2024, total foreign aid was 82.3 billion. And so Israel's only receiving at most 10% of this. And then
Israel's only receiving 10%. Well, how much would they have to receive for you to raise your condom eyebrow?
Of course, when you have just kind of general questions of corruption going on in the Senate and the House, etc., in Washington, if you go to Open Secrets, they have a bunch of studies on things like the revolving door, dark money, super PACs, and special interest groups. And the thing is, again, yes, there's a little bit of Jewish overrepresentation.
Again, see, there's a little bit of overrepresentation. He's coaching it. Now, this is considered controlled opposition and sweeping, okay? But I'm chalking it up to, now, I mean, he might be Mooish. I have no idea. But I'm chalking this up to a cognitive bias. I don't think he's going to change his mind, but you keep acknowledging the problem, but you're hand-waving it. That is the criticism.
Per population, but in terms of total amount, most of it is actually not Jewish. The vast majority of the problems within the United States government in Washington, D.C. really don't have anything to do with Jews at all. Which now brings me to the second big problem with groyper.
You know those foreign wars that we get into? Have you seemed to notice that it benefits Israel? Oh, I'm asking a question. Sorry, dude. I don't want to be dumb or bad.
Finally getting out of the JQ, which is that groypers are kind of bootlickers. They are correct that both.
Well, this is, oh, bootlickers, but this is interesting. Hooky baby. A 60,000 population town in Texas is being forced to pay millions to Israel. I have heard about this, and the government freaked out on them when they said they don't want to pay it. Absolutely incredible. Wow. Okay. All right. All right, dude. What is going on here? $100. Well, fellas, looks like we found the moo.
Oh, you're on the payroll of the Jews.
TK for $100. Well, this must be important. just doubling down on my guest request. Stormy's a real one. Peer pressure. Jeez, I mean, if you're gonna do that, Jesus, put that tongue away. Well, if you're gonna do that, right? Well, they would also have to want to talk to me, but damn, dude. All right. Fuck. Fucking all right. All right, dude. Let me okay. I'll think about it. I'm fucking all right then.
Both parties are corrupt, but they actually underestimate just how corrupt they are. Most groypers I've seen, including Nick Fuentes, really only seem to demonstrate a kind of surface level understanding of the corruption that is involved.
Oh yeah. Mentis doesn't have a surface level understanding. That wasn't a projection.
And all the bureaucratic institutions that are driving the West to its doom. When it comes to intellectual spheres on the right, you can absolutely find very educated right-wing libertarians. You can find very educated NRX. You can find very educated monarchists. But it's very rare that a truly educated person is just an outright groyper. Because while groypers do understand the problem with the world, they don't fully understand the extent of what's behind it.
This really is, somebody said it earlier in Ethno Mott and Bailey, where, like, okay, we'll talk about Nick Fuentes then. Like, okay.
I think that kind of going back to the JQ a little bit, I suspect that's the reason why a lot of them latch on to the JQ. The JQ is kind of just an oversimplification as an excuse to not fully understand how to fix something. Because it gives people this kind of idea of, oh, you can just easily fix something by doing this one thing. When in reality, dismantling the bureaucratic states is going to be a lot more complicated than that. And so groyper...
It's, okay, doing this one thing would reduce the foreign wars, okay? It would alleviate the issues that you mentioned about white people because they're being specifically targeted. I mean, dude, the ADL was considered Turning Point a hate group, and then they removed it once he got assassinated, dude, okay? Like, but that's the thing. This is why we just call you a moo. How, you know, whatever example we give you, you're just going to go like, oh, well, fallacy.
Then propose these alternative solutions that wouldn't actually be solutions. Like, for example, Christian nationalism, which that subject is enough for its entire own video on itself. But to be brief, the problem with Christian nationalism is that maybe it might make a few things about society better if they were to gain power, but not really. It would still be subject to the same issues that drive corruption and inefficiency in the current state. In many ways, it just replaces the cult of woke with something else, rather than actually giving people freedom. Which, on that note of freedom, another big issue with the groypers is what some people call groyper socialism. One of the things Nick Fuentes recently said was that the left needs to give up open borders and the right needs to give up the free market. Now, I'm not going to go over the economic fallacies that groypers use.
The economic fallacies that groypers use. You need to grow up.
Against the free market because they're exactly the same fallacies as the left uses, actually. The average groyper has exactly the same
So yeah, I'm looking at Stormy's profile, and like I would need Fist there. It would be like the Eric Arval interview, but I would need Fist there. So I don't have a lot of in-depth knowledge on whatever the person is probably going to be talking about. But I can, yeah, we could at some point interview him. Sure, I would just have to look through and see what's up. I don't know what it, like. I want to talk to people, but I don't know what I want to say to them. Like, if I wanted to collab with Made by Jim Bob, I don't know what I would do. Same thing with Remnant 777. I don't know. I'm like, that guy seems cool. I don't know what I want to do. I feel like I'm in fucking kindergarten trying to make friends all over again.
Economic misunderstandings that your average sort of teenage socialist vooswasher might have. They just have some right-leaning cultural beliefs instead. They just have a pro-white identity rather than a pro-brown identity or something else. Which is actually kind of weird because the whole individualism that the free market is kind of based on in many ways stems from WASP culture. And so my only answer to groypers who think that we need groyper socialism is to just read basic economics or something. It's the same problem that a lot of the young left has. They just haven't studied economic theory. And again, kind of going back to the JQ, another bad argument that groypers will use is an argument very similar to how communists will point to an issue and blame that issue on capitalism, when in fact the issue has nothing to do with capitalism. Groypers will do the same thing, where they'll point to an issue with the economy, blame the Jews, and then claim that the economy needs more regulation. Except,
I'm sorry, Mentis, do you understand that in the religion is economics? It's built in. It's built into the identity. Why do you think disproportionate lawyers, bankers, media,
When you look into those regulations and actually understand them, you'll realize that those regulations are what's causing the problem. For example, if you watch my Refuting BreadTube episode on Second Thought, groypers will often make the exact same fallacies that Second Thought was guilty of. They'll just add the JQ to it, and that's pretty much it. There's a lot of other smallish...
Really? That wasn't superficial at all. It's kind of like the same thing as communists, but they just say the moos, and that's pretty much it. Wow. Pinnacle of intellectual thought. You didn't leave anything out, dude. Not an ounce of fat on that one. How do you argue against that?
Issues with the groypers, many of them just kind of silly and not worth covering. But the last one that's worth looking at is the groypers' solution to freedom of association, which is basically just mass deportations to the point of race war, a meme I've seen posted on image boards quite often. And the problem with this is that race war is an incredibly stupid idea. I mean, just even if we completely...
Race war? So, I mean, wouldn't this already be happening? What? I'm sorry. Are the groypers known for like race war? Somebody in the comments might have said something, but wouldn't they already be on the street? No violence has happened. This is what the left does. You have to be more afraid of the words of the right than the violence of the left.
Ignore the obvious ethical problems with race war. But let's just ignore the fact that millions of innocent people are going to die if that happens. Well, even though that by itself should be a pretty good reason why race war is a really, really bad idea. Another bigger problem with it is that people are likely going to just end up rebelling against it. For instance, just look at the backlash that ICE is already getting for the very small amount of screw-ups that they've had. Admittedly, the mainstream media tends to overemphasize those issues. But the point is, it should show you that people are already kind of not interested in this on a mass scale. Doing this on a scale of times 100, which is basically what the groypers want, would almost certainly just result in mass public backlash. It's also an excuse to not really understand why so many immigrants are coming into Western countries. And
this guy is calling other people out for an excuse to not understand something.
The first place. And they mostly come for two reasons. One, because we offer them a lot of free stuff, but also because we've passed laws that take away freedom of association. And so they come here and then get preferential treatment through DEI measures, basically getting a full free ride on taxpayer dime. And to any groypers out there who are watching this video who are not convinced by this, I'll be doing another video later on a newer form of libertarian strategy that will hopefully convince you why right-wing libertarianism or Hoppians like myself have a much better, not just a more ethical solution, but solutions that would actually work. Because
this is the solutions guy, right? This epistemology he's shown so far is very trustworthy.
A lot of the solutions that groypers offers are solutions that aren't really solutions. They're just backlash to the corruption of the current establishment. And again, yes, young white men growing up in Western countries these days, we have every right to be angry at that establishment. But that doesn't mean you should take these silly edgelord positions of screw optics, I'm going in, because a lot of those positions...
Yeah, you shouldn't be an edgelord on the internet, says the guy that knows all about 4chan. They're not the groypers aren't making policy or anything, dude. And then Nick Fuentes is essentially trying to become a kingmaker, but you should be addressing what Nick Fuentes is saying, but that would be difficult, wouldn't it?
Either A, don't work, or B, they're just kind of flat out dumb. So then, what's the conclusion to all this? Well, getting back to the establishment, as I've just kind of gone over what the groypers are wrong about, it almost seems kind of flabbergasting that the establishment is unable to deal with groypers. And I think a lot of it can be summarized by that Piers Morgan debate that recently happened between him and Nick Fuentes. Other people have already done relatively decent reviews of this debate, but the TLDR problem is that it shows that the boomers generation doesn't really understand what has happened. And I suspect what has happened is actually just a simple technological one. The creation of the internet has just kind of left the older generations in the dust. And so many of the older generations are still kind of permanently stuck in the origin story of World War II, whereas online discussions in terms of politics and philosophy have hyper-accelerated us far past that story. And that's a big reason why Piers Morgan just couldn't pin Nick Fuentes.
Yes, we're far past that story because of the quote-unquote groypers. Yup. And you can ride the wave or become a slave, buddy. Scavenge, $10, thank you so much. Fallacy people are so dumb. So if all your friends are PDFs and you say you're not one, I shouldn't do a fallacy to the ultra logic sins. Well, that's the thing. It's fallacy farming is an act of purity spiraling, right? Because nothing is going to be completely logically sound. This should be a red flag to you. Whenever somebody uses, for the most part, just because X doesn't mean X, the inverse is true, okay? Just because you're tall doesn't mean it's going to hit your head, or it does. It's a meaningless thing for someone to say just because X doesn't mean X or doesn't mean Y. Be on the lookout for that one.
Now, they don't understand that the moralistic arguments of the mid-1900s are dead. They're gone. They're never coming back. They will never, ever work again. That's not to say that moralistic arguments of different types won't work in the future. Of course they will. They always work. Moralistic arguments are absolutely loved by the average person. But the ones that came from the World War II origin story are over, and people need to accept that. And this is especially proven by the fact that...
Do you love the just lack of curiosity as to how these things come and go? Yeah, now just magically the World War II narrative is just over. Yeah, it just ended. Wasn't because of the ultra-national, mega-ethno-nationalist right?
All of the attacks on Nick Fuentes have just colossally failed. The strategy of the establishment against Nick Fuentes is mass censorship, mass deplatforming, and mass debanking, and mass demonetization of his content. And the arguments they've been giving against the groypers are, again, almost entirely just moralistic shaming, where they'll say, oh, they're anti-Semitic, therefore they're wrong. But those arguments don't work anymore. You have...
So, this is interesting. We have Asmund Roach in chat. I'm white. I just know the writing is on the wall, and I don't idolize my race. Hey, buddy, I feel a very similar way that you do, okay? I've been brought up to not feel that way, all right? I don't idolize my race. Yeah, I understand that feeling completely. I just have way more fun with people that prioritize their race, and they're much more civil, intellectual, better critical thinking skills, religious. I mean, I don't know. I meet better people that at least understand the concept of promoting a white identity, because what do we have if we're decreasing the amount of white people? I mean, it's almost a consequentialist attitude. Like, yeah, we need more white people. They need to be advocated for, even under a liberal framework.
To actually explain your position. And so what happened is the establishment just ended up making total fools of themselves. Because the thing about censorship that I don't think most people really understand, the main problem with it, is that censorship actually just shields an idea from being challenged. Censorship doesn't work largely for similar reasons behind why prohibition doesn't really work. It just moves the production of the prohibited items underground for all the based algorithms to play with. And in the case of censorship, though, it's actually even worse, because censorship isn't even dealing with a scarce resource like in the case of prohibition. Censorship deals with an idea which can be replicated infinitely. And so you're going to think that you can get rid of an idea by simply banning it underground when that doesn't even work with scarce goods? No, of course not. That's obviously not going to work. In fact, what it did instead is it actually strengthened the groypers' position. Because again, remember, they blamed the Jews. And
this reminds me of James Lindsay by, he's just telling you all your solutions won't work. And it's like, okay, big brain. So then what do we do instead?
one of the arguments on the Jewish question that I didn't mention when talking about the JQ is that a lot of times JQers will say, oh, hey, if the JQ wasn't true, then why did they have the need to ban it?
Right. And how, hold on. Why do they have the need to ban it? I'm sorry, dude. How do they have the power to ban it? Can we ask that question?
Or they'll say things like, truth does not fear investigation. The thing is, that's actually a somewhat convincing argument. It's not correct, it doesn't prove the JQ is true, but it is true that historically, censorship is often the sword wielded by those who are wrong. If an idea truly is bad, then you should be able to defeat it in the free market of ideas. It should be not difficult whatsoever to do that. And so by banning that idea, you are ironically actually kind of admitting defeat to the idea. It's kind of sad, really, how this is a lesson that humanity has to constantly...
Okay, so is he conceding the point that they're wrong and that it's valid for the JQ to happen if they have to make it illegal for over 600 million people to question the Holly? That would be the logical conclusion if we were critically thinking, right? Well, where could this go from here?
Relearn. And it's especially a problem with the JQ, because while the Jewish question is ultimately wrong and ultimately unethical...
Ultimately wrong... See, it's just wrong and it's unethical. But is it true? No, it's wrong, so it's not true. Interesting.
You shouldn't hold the Jews collectively guilty for everything, and they don't.
Yeah, only they can hold you collectively guilty. You shouldn't do what they do, okay? So even if you do hold them collectively guilty, you don't have power. I don't care. There's no violence in the streets. That doesn't mean anything. However, Nick Fuentes does not repeat that rhetoric, and that is a steelman of the groypers. That is the leader of the groypers, and he does not hold them collectively guilty.
secretly own the world. The average Jewish person is, again, just a totally normal person who has done nothing wrong. However, one thing JQers are a bit correct on is, ironically, when it's talking about censorship and certain Jewish and pro-Zionist organizations that perpetuate it. You've got AIPAC, you've got the Zionist Organization of America, you've got the World Jewish Congress, you've got the American Jewish Committee, and of course, let's not forget the ADL, and these are only just a handful. All of these organizations push very heavy pro-Zionist, pro-Israel, and very...
Okay, so all of the... okay, so they're all pro-Moish. Okay, we're almost there. We're so close. But he doesn't want to be anti-Semitic.
very pro-censorship positions in favor of defending those positions. And it just isn't working. But not only that, but they're also really good examples of id pull for we, but not for thee. Pushing ultra-far-right ethno-nationalism for Israel, while pushing ultra-far-left progressive open society outside of Israel.
Okay, so he's acknowledging the problem again. I'm getting mixed signals. Mentis, are we smashing or not? I'm standing here with half a boner. You starting to, like, you know, talk me up a little bit, your hands on my leg. Every time I go to make a move, you're like, no, we're not smashing. Are we smashing or not? You're really just flirting with me and leading me on right now. Just give me an answer.
The truth is that if organizations like this existed for a general European ethnic identity in favor of the white identity diaspora, those organizations would almost certainly be considered white nationalists and be heavily criticized by the media.
How do they have the power to do that, Mentis? Okay, so when we talk shit on the right, we don't have the power to do anything. See how that's an equivocation of people that have power versus people that don't have power? One could say the oppressor versus the oppressed.
It's hypocritical and subversive. And their answer so far has just been to censor and ban anybody who criticizes them, and it's completely ineffective. Censorship doesn't make you look strong, it makes you look weak, it makes you look incapable of dealing with your opponents. And so for all the shadow banning and demonetizing and debanking and decredentialing, here we are in the year 2026, and yet Nick Fuentes is one of the most popular right-wing influencers on the internet. And a big part of that is because the establishment thought that they could just finger wag them out of existence. You can't finger wag them out of existence anymore.
Why does the establishment promote Hassan Piker, though, and allow for communism in society, Mentis, but not even milquetoast? Donald Trump's a 90s Democrat, okay? Okay, buddy? I know there's no beep boop bop boop beep numbers for what I'm saying. There's no studies or stats, right? But you have to use your own critical thinking to come to these obvious conclusions. Fellows, we're almost at the second video.
The older generations, the ones who are still largely making up Congress, need to acknowledge the fact that they have kind of screwed things for the younger generations. Because as someone who's spent a lot of time within the same culture that birthed the groypers, the thing about them is that a lot of them, they just want a homeland. They just want to live in a society.
How the heck am I in a diaspora while in my own goddamn country? You want to know how? It's the who's
that gives them just the basic amount of human respect and dignity. They want to live in a culture of like-minded individuals to their own, rather than living in a culture that actively hates them and actively denies their identity, while hypocritically supporting those very identity politics they are denied for every other group. It comes as no surprise to me that so many groypers post silly Hyperborean memes sometimes, imagining basically a fantasy homeland for themselves, really just out of a desire to escape from a world that has essentially betrayed them. And so I'll end on that note. I'll probably make more videos on more specific things in this.
He caught a lot of hate in the comments.
So one
for
thing
that, okay?
a lot of
So this video is called Understanding Per Capita, Why It's Deceptively Nuanced. Okay? He's not gonna back down on what he said. You know what? Let's try it out. Let's try the I don't think I've looked at these comments yet, actually. Okay. Tell him about per capita. I'm getting to that. Yeah. Yep. He does take his time getting to per capita in this. So we can agree that he catches a lot of heat for his video, and understandably so. Now he could have made this on the JQ. Now, I did make a video specifically making fun of him for missing per capita. And it just so happens that this video is addressing the per capita. So we can agree that this is not a response to my video. This is a response to the criticism of him eating his balls on per capita from the last video, okay? That's what this is a response to. So let's just go for it. Oh my God, yeah. Okay. Now I want you to notice something. So, him right, you wrong, okay?
Hey,
Him right, you wrong. And a lot of people are giving him criticism. Now, fellas, how does James Lindsay handle criticism about the moves, right? But the moo question, not very well. What does he do? Doubles down, talks to you in a condescending way, and goes, let me try to explain it to you again. It's like, well, do you understand the criticism? Before you explain yourself, do you understand the criticism? And he doesn't. A bias. It's the new litmus test, I'm telling you. Ride the wave, will become a slave. Here we go now.
internets. So one thing a lot of people struggle with is the concept of per capita. Because the thing a lot of people get
See, a lot of people struggle with it. See how he's not saying that you're struggling with it? A lot of people struggle with it.
wrong on this one is that there's more to per capita than just per capita. Or really, there's just more to statistical reasoning than per capita. And so this is going to be a quick rant explaining the per capita thing in a bit more.
Now, the purpose of this quick rant is because of the criticism of his last video. He was like, wow, I'm getting a lot of backlash. So let me do a quick rant and address the per capita criticism when it comes to the moos, how you can view it everywhere else, but not with the moos.
More detail, why it matters, what it implies, but also when it doesn't matter or doesn't imply what it usually would. Now, the quick rundown of what per capita means is based on the Latin phrase that means by heads or for each head.
Do we have to go back to what it means? You know, it all started when I was in the first grade. Dude, can we get to the criticism? Okay? Watch the amount of fluff in this. This is almost like when somebody has to apologize and they like really beat around the bush, and then at the end they're like, oh, I'm kind of sorry about that.
And it's used to mean something per person, with the point being just recognizing the statistical reality that the averages of chances of something to happen often matter more than just the actual base amount of it happening. For example, in the United States, every year more people die as the result of peanut butter.
Who is he explaining per capita to? If he acknowledges, if he concedes that the groypers understand per capita, now, is he explaining per capita to who exactly? Who is this video for? Let me explain to you what the woke right is again, right? That's that kind of vibes.
Than they die as the result of fugu. Does this mean that peanut butter is more dangerous than pufferfish? No, absolutely not. Of course not. That's completely ridiculous.
Not starting off very strong. We're starting off with peanut butter and pufferfish. We'd like you to talk about the moose. It's a death butterfly when you think about it.
It's just that very, very, very few people are eating fugu. And when they are eating it, it's usually being prepared by a very skilled chef because we know that it's a dangerous food to eat. The toxins, if not properly removed, can cause someone to die of respiratory failure. And of course, the number of people who are even just trying to eat fugu
Okay, about 10% of the video is... Okay, we're at about 10% of the video.
are less than 1% of the people eating peanut butter. So that's just a basic example of why the reasoning of per capita is important. If we human beings were too dumb to have this per head concept, then we would be doomed to believe some really dumb things. Which, unfortunately, a lot of us kind of are, especially when it comes to confirmation bias.
You see how he feels smart calling people dumb? Sitch does this too. I think he references Sitch in this. Sitch and Mentiswave, stop just calling things dumb. I know it makes you feel smart, and it makes your audience feel smart to point at somebody else and call them dumb. This is what leftists do. Have something more substantial if you want to be taken more intellectually seriously and to show that you actually have, you know, above average critical thinking skills.
And believing that which we ideologically align ourselves with. I think the most obvious example of this was the man or bear question. If you're hiking in the woods, would you rather come across a man or would you rather come across a bear? All feminista nonsense and politics aside, the only thing about this question is
he's just sucking his own dick about things that no one's asking about. Yeah, we remember. Yeah, dude, yeah, anyway, the level of fluff and obfuscation, just don't make the video. Wait a little bit. Get your bearings first.
In the end, that really matters is which one of the two is more likely to be dangerous. Say you're on a hiking trail and you find yourself face to face with another random man in the woods, or if you find yourself face to face with a bear in the woods. Which one is more likely to rip your face off? And which one is more likely to just be another fellow hiker?
Fellas, how do you think it's looking right now that we're a fifth of the way through the video? Oh, no! You can really see how in the other video it didn't have to be 40 minutes. And we're a fifth of the way through this video. And kind of waiting for you to address the criticism. You know, it would have been nice for him to show criticism that people have had toward him. And then he addresses that criticism. But just like James Lindsay, doesn't do that. Just goes back into meta idea land. Stack Academic Strategy for $2. Silly Edgelord Position Fund. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Theodore McCarthy, $5. The app to the appeal to fallacy is formally known to be a fallacy because a claim can be based on a logical fallacy and still be factually correct. Yes, exactly. But it makes them feel smart to say you wrong, you dumb. Stealth is optional. 7 czars. What are you, from a different fucking planet? What the hell are those? Thank you for those.
Hiker and nod and wave at you and walk by you and do nothing? I don't know. This is a really tough question. So yeah, that's kind of just a silly clown world recent example. A lot of people got that one wrong. Part of it just simply because of cultural misandry and feministas being a little bit dumb. But another big part of it is just people
They got it wrong and they're dumb. Like, that's mind melting. That makes you dumber. Listening to content like this a lot of the time. I don't remember him being like this, but then I'd have to watch his content that I agree with and see if I didn't notice these things because I agreed with the message of his content, which is a bias. I don't know if I have that bias.
Genuinely not understanding per capita. There are a lot of people out there just citing the base core statistics of the fact that, oh, hey, more men do a violent crime towards other people than, say, bear attacks happen per year. And a few of those people were just disingenuous pseudo-intellectuals, but a few of them seem to actually believe their own BS. They seem...
Does this feel like listening to him talk about per capita? Does it feel similar to James Lindsay talking about the woke right? You're like, I'm waiting for your fucking point, dude. We're fucking going still. Where are we going? Just get to the fucking point.
To not understand that it doesn't really matter the base number of bad things that men do per year and base number of bear attacks that happen per year. What matters is, in that moment, in the context of that question, who is more likely to do something bad to you? A man or a bear face to face? And of course,
who is more likely to do something bad to you? A moo or a goy? The moo is the bear in this situation, okay, buddy? Let's try. Here, let me try and help what's happening right now. The bear is the moo. The guy is the goy. Let's try it out.
Answer is it's far, far more likely to be a bear because per capita, bears are more dangerous.
But per capita, moose are more dangerous. So here we go.
That's really it. All of the other things about the discussion, there's some interesting things there. I even did a whole video on it. But ultimately,
what if we phrase this to him as the bear question? He seems to understand it if the moos are bears. Let's see.
If you want to know the base reason why the side of saying that you would not want to pick the bear is right, it really just came down to per capita. And that's also just a good example of how a lot of people let politics get in the way of just obvious reasoning. And again, there have been many, many, many videos made on the whole man-bear.
Well, he lets economics get in the way of reasoning, right? Those are his politics.
Question. But for this video, there's an additional thing here in regards to per capita that a lot of people miss. And this can be found by asking ourselves the question, okay, what is the solution to the bear question? Does the fact that bears are very dangerous per average encounter mean that the solution to the bear problem is that we should mobilize the entire United States military to hunt down and exterminate?
No, you can stay away from the bears. Now imagine if the bears wouldn't leave you the fuck alone. Now imagine that. Good night, Genetically Irish. Thanks for hanging out. Do we see the difference in this analogy? You can get away from a bear, and the bear won't follow you. Now with the moose, they won't leave the West alone, Mentis. So that is the difference in your analogy.
The Bear Menace. Sign up at your local recruitment station today so that you can participate in total bear death. Well, no, that's obviously a very, very, very dumb solution. Just
very
because
dumb.
bears are dangerous per average encounter doesn't really mean you actually have to do anything about it. When things are working properly in nature, bears don't even end up interacting with us very much. Bears are considered a keystone species. They are good and necessary for the environment to work.
Fellas, we are 40% of the way through the video, okay? Now, he made this specifically as a response to him getting the shit kicked out of him for his moronic per capita take, okay? Now, do we think this video is helping? Is this video the hands that heal or the hands that hurt right now, okay? Do you think it's helping his case at all that 40% of the video is about fucking bears? What are you doing? New gym for $10. Thank you very much. Hey, you're a 90s guy. Remember Grizzly Bear Man lived with bears for weeks and everything was fine until the bears convinced him to film that gay card. Yeah, he was living among the bears. Everything was fine until the bears gave him a loan with an unreasonably high interest rate.
Just because a bear encounter can be dangerous if you come face to face with them, that doesn't mean you actually have to do anything. The correct answer to the bear question is therefore to just leave them alone. Let the bears live deep in...
Have we tried leaving the moose alone? Yes. Yes, we have. And what happens when we leave them alone? Do they advocate for us? Absolutely not. When they're in danger, I see billboards that tell me to protect them. Okay? They don't leave us alone. They don't let us collectivize. We've shown it with Return to the Land. So that is the difference, Mentis. Address the criticism. You can't.
The forest where they belong and let them do their bear things. And I know that kind of sounds silly, but hopefully I'm making my point here, which is that just because there's a per capita issue doesn't automatically mean that your solution to that per capita issue is the best solution. There's usually more to the story, which means that if you're not...
Oh my God, right? 109 times and it didn't work. Oh my God. How did I not think of that? Blue Lick for $2. Moose equal man, bear, pigs confirmed. Absolutely. They are an amalgamation of lesser beings, I would say.
Careful, per capita can actually trap you in an oversimplification fallacy. There's a lot more to...
The bear cries out in pain as it mauls you. Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. We need to put the bears back in the forest. Excellent work, fellas. Excellent work. Make it 110. Very nice.
Statistical reasoning, especially in regards to politics and philosophy, but also pretty much anything, than just per capita alone. There's often, yes, the dreaded word nuance involved. Like, here's another...
Now, we agree, whenever the left uses nuance, okay, it's to bring you into the weeds and obfuscate. He's already obfuscated for almost half of the video. What have we learned from what he said? It's been entirely fluff. It's like listening to James Lindsay talk about the woke right.
Other example I see often being thrown around. A post from PSA Sitch. This is the right-wing version of not understanding per capita. And it's quoting Shannon Hill. I don't see a single blue state, just blue cities trying to tell us how to live. And it's a map of the United States, mostly all voting red Republican, but then with a few blue dots.
Why should people in blue cities that don't know how to provide for themselves, the people in blue cities are like moose, where it's like, they make money, but do they create value? Like it's entertainment compared to like, why should 1,000 people in a blue city decide what a farmer does with his land? They don't know how to do anything. It's dependent people deciding what independent people should do. I believe that's the point. Dillweed, member for 1 month. Thank you. Bullshitting is the moo question. Bullshitting the moo question is the digital equivalent of kissing the wall, or at least a precursor to eventually kissing the wall in person. Okay, excellent. See, it's a baby step. It's 1 degree off course. It's a step in the wrong direction, buddy. You can turn around whenever you want. The Gray Slayer, $5. Thank you. How many bears can you fit in a car? Depends on how big the ashtray is. Oh yeah, dude. What if we start calling them bears? Fellas, I feel an inside joke in the community on the horizon. They might be bears.
And of course, the issue here that PSA Sitch is pointing out is that, yes, those blue dots are less likely, but there's way, way more people living in those blue dots. When it comes to the two-party system in the United States, I think we kind of all know that Republicans tend to get a lot of votes from less populated rural
Instead of Damoos, da bears. That could work. That could work for the older fellers. New GM, $5, thank you. If there are 2 lethal Skittles in 100, you don't need any Skittles. Not even once. See? You don't have to play their game. We're halfway through the video right now, dude. Okay? So this is what I'm saying about cognitive bias. Like, well, I have to make a response, and, you know, let me just explain it to the dumb goys right now. Because you're too stupid. You're too dumb to understand what he's saying about per capita
areas, and Democrats tend to get a lot of votes from the more populated urban areas. Pretty basic stuff. And thus, when it comes to total votes, when you look at maps like this, it's entirely possible for there to be more total votes from the blue areas, or more per head if you're just looking at these districts as heads. And I often see a lot of times libs will make fun of Republicans for this, saying, oh, haha, Republicans don't get it. And to some degree, yeah, there's a lot of Republicans who don't get per capita here. But there's also another interesting Midwit meme involved in this, where the low IQ guy is just looking at the map and saying, herder, I see more red than blue. And the Midwit was going, ah ha ha, Republicans are dumb, they don't understand per capita. And perhaps maybe on that degree he's right. But then you have the more interesting nuanced take, which is when you start questioning.
Okay, now imagine with the JQ, Mentis, you had the more interesting nuanced take where you bring up all the NGOs, how they call it world mooery, okay? Imagine that for a moment. But when he talks about the JQ and he talks about the groypers, well, it's just super duper extra ethno nationalism, hyperdrive nationalism. Where's the nuance there, my dude?
The very legitimacy of universal suffrage. Because a long time ago, it really was just landowners who were able to vote. And was that fair back then? No, it wasn't. But the federal budget sure as heck was a lot more balanced. And so there's additional questions like that when it comes to per capita. Sometimes there's a quality over quantity take in addition to per capita, which then leads to...
Yes, quality over quantity. Right. It's what the elite moos do. And their stated goal for why they're doing it that we're focusing on.
Realizing that another thing with per capita is that you also have to look at the distribution. This is something a lot of people misunderstood in my previous videos in regard.
He just is bringing up the previous video at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. We got 4 minutes left. Sweet mother of pearl. It has taken him this long to mention the previous video. A rat named Mouse, $2, thank you. We're using bears now, but my Judaism joke. You can still use both, it's fine. I mean, we can do something with bears. It's unexplored. It's an untapped well of comedy. The bears want my honey. It was promised to it. See? Blue Lick, $2. Thank you very much. There's something there. It's unexplored.
The groypers and the JQ. A lot of people thought that I was just suddenly going back on per capita and then suddenly not understanding.
Okay, so he did bring something up. Mentis fails per capita, claims groypers understand per capita, claims groypers don't respond to per capita correctly. Okay. So it would be nice if you took, like, you know, the best argument that someone made and argued against that. But let's see.
Per capita when it comes to the Jews. And perhaps I just didn't make it clear enough.
The
so
bears.
here's another explanation. When it comes to a population...
So I wasn't being clear. It's not that he was wrong, see? It's just that he wasn't being clear because him right, you wrong.
Group having a disproportionately high amount of guilt per capita towards a certain problem, you also have to look at how the distribution goes. For example, let's say you're living in the US and there's 100 elves in the country.
Dude! We just did bears. I think we did peanut butter, pufferfish, and bears. And now we're doing fucking elves. How is this not like James Lindsay's death butterfly, dude? Why do we have to go with elves? Oh, dear Lord. This is a skit. This is a comedy skit. He's just trying to annoy me. TK, $2, thank you very much. Electoral colleges for every state level position. I don't see why not. Direct democracies are rather gay, sure. Gray Slayer, $5. Guys, I have bad news about Bering. Oh, boy. We should have noticed it the entire time. The nose on Bering. The snout. Mighty Meme King, member for 4 months. Thank you very much. If moos were good, we'd be racist in the opposite direction. Like, oh, a moo is running for president? Yes, that would be so good for our country. Well, and I'll say this until I'm moo in the face. Only white people get to complain about race traitors. Black people think they'll call a black guy an Uncle Tom because he's a black Republican, when white people have white people that will kiss the feet of black people and say they hate themselves for being white. There's no black guilt. There's only white guilt. So no one's allowed to talk about race traitors except for white people. Do you understand what I'm saying right now?
And out of these 100 elves, there are 300 thefts that take place per year. Now, that, of course, as an ethnic group, is a very widely, ridiculously high amount of theft per capita compared to any other ethnic group. But consider two different models. In Model A, you have one elf out of these 100 elves committing 300 acts of theft, and a local judge just keeps letting that one elf walk free for some strange reason.
What is that strange reason? Is it a Soros-backed DA? Okay, what's the reason? You made me wait this long. Mentis, are we smashing or not? Come on, let me know. You're killing me over here.
And then in Model B, all 300 elves commit anywhere between 2 to 4 thefts per year. Now, in both of these models, technically, per capita, they're the same. But of course, they're both very widely different in terms of what's going on. From a purely consequentialist perspective, you could, in theory, justify arguing throwing all the elves out based on Model B. But you obviously can't make that argument based on Model A. And of course, in both cases, we're still really only looking at 100 elves here. So as long as your society's normal method of dealing with thieves is in place, as long as that's functioning, it's not really a big thing to be concerned with. As long as that system is in place, the elves that are actually guilty of doing something wrong will end up removing themselves. At absolute worst, it could justify people being a bit more suspicious of elves in the country, but not much more than that. Going back to the bear question, saying that the solution to the problem would be to mobilize the entire United States military to remove the elvish menace would also, in this situation, be a very...
See how he's leaping to an extreme when we're just trying to focus on the facts of, you know, moos should be removed from positions of power because they have a dual loyalty, maybe just one loyalty, and that is to Israel. Also, their religion denies Christ in the most abusive, disgusting way possible. I know you can't just like have a study on that. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you facts of the world that are not even controversial.
Silly, very ridiculous, very unnecessary overreaction. And that's assuming Model B. In Model A, the solution is even more obvious. Just make sure that one elf actually gets punished for their crimes. Or at the very least, is physically removed from the rest of society so they can no longer commit those crimes. And that's the issue.
See? Just to use your imagination, just arrest them. What a great idea, Mentis. Now, you might think that's the worst point that he's made. And I'd love to be you. I'd love to not know what he's going to say next. Because it's going to get even worse somehow. New GM, $5. Thank you so much. Are the other 99 Grizzly Elves fundraising for the legal defense and running a full press sweep on Dwarven Media? Yes! Yeah, that would be a little bit different. I guess that would make the analogy a little more apt, wouldn't you say? TK for $2. Thank you so much. Why do groypers love Stephen Miller? Because now, with feminism, okay, there's millions of women that think feminism is dumb, okay? Now with the pro-black stuff, black nationalism, victimhood mentality with black people, now there's really only thousands of black people that speak out against that, okay? Now when it comes to world mooery, I think there's 5 moos that are against it. Really hard. Really, really hard to find sane moos that can talk about it.
Issue I was trying to point out with groypers and the JQ. They get hyper fixated on Jews because
we are fixated on something, this question that's been around for centuries, because they make laws, as you've already admitted, for us to not be allowed to even discuss these topics. And you've admitted that they've tried to suppress these questions. Okay? So that's why we're do you think the moos were hyper focused on getting out of Auschwitz? Imagine Moose trying to leave Auschwitz. You're like, oh my God, you're obsessed with leaving this place. Yeah, it's the issue. It's the criticism. We're not focused on the 93% peaceful. We're focused on the 7% riots, dude, okay? Why do I always get pissed around hour 3?
You forget that there's more to statistical reasoning and more to understanding solutions than just per capita. You have to look at both the distribution and you have to...
Yes, there is more than just per capita. It's their lineage. It's their culture. It's how they advocate for themselves, but don't allow for other people to do that in the West. It's how they allow for a certain lifestyle in Israel with their borders and not in the West. Yeah, it's not just per capita. The per capita is the starting point. And if you can't make it past the per capita, you're just a dumb moo because there's no point in talking to you. I mean, how many other ways can I explain this to you?
Look at the greater context of what's really going on. Because in the case of the JQ, their issue is mainly just having a disproportionately high representation in backroom corrupt deals, lobbying, foreign aid, influence in the bureaucratic state.
Oh my God. Influence. Okay. He's doing it again. Fellas, he's doing it again. Okay, so he's going to list all the grievances. Let's do it again. He's so close.
Because in the case of the JQ, their issue is mainly just having a disproportionately high representation in backroom corrupt deals, lobbying, foreign aid, influence in the bureaucratic state, as well as the cathedral of academia and media. And of course, it also should be pointed out that the distribution in this is much closer to Model A here. Most Jews aren't actually involved.
Oh my God, he did it again. Oh my God, he said most. Okay. Maybe I do need to piss in the smoke. Okay. He did it again. Okay. We had to wait 6.5 minutes into a 10.5 minute video for him to slowly say the exact same thing, dude. See? But you understand. I'm a fan of Mentiswave, right? But this has to be mocked. It has to be. This is a problem. Because he's a person of size with his channel. And he has excellent critical thinking skills, right? But this is going to be an issue. It's been an issue for a long time. And now we're able to talk about the issue for I don't know how long until YouTube kicks us all off again. So, you really have to address this, Mentis, because you just did the most of them aren't. I know, dude. I know. I know that 93% of them don't. We're talking with the 7% that do.
It's really just a high representation in the top 1% of elites. And what a lot of times I'll see happen is that noticers will notice this and basically fall into this rabbit hole of completely counterproductive, ridiculous...
The T is silent!
...this anti-Semitism. They will conclude that because of this
There it is. He believes anti-Semitism is a real thing.
...of completely counterproductive, ridiculous anti-Semitism. They will conclude...
Counterproductive, ridiculous anti-Semitism. And there it is. There's your fallacy. There's your bias. There's the roadblock. Hey, I'm not witch hunting people. I'm not like those crazy witch hunters, but witches really do exist. A rat named Mouse. $5, thank you. The moos are like elves. You like elves? Yeah? Like from Skyrim or The Witcher or Delicious in Dungeon. Wait a minute. Vexy baby. $10. Thank you so much, my dude. You get pissed around hour 3 because you need a piss in the smoke. I don't need a piss. I do need a smoke. So on the list for 100 of something that probably you need to pay for things, but I wouldn't be able to use it. I don't even know what it is. Me mom got turned into soap by the Grinch. Me dad made toys in Stolly's workshop. Buy me Christmas socks. Danny Elfstein. Elves and bears, fellas. I've said Jays, I've said Moos, right? But what do the blacks do? Think of what the blacks do. They have 50 different words for the word gun, right? We can just keep making different words for the same concept if that's what the left does. That's what the Moos do, and that's what we're going to do. We got Moos, elves, and bears so far. I'm not even going to tell Fist. No one tell Fist.
That because of this hyper capita influence, then removing of the Jews is somehow the highest political importance. When in reality, no, it's not. The real solution to the bureaucratic state is to just abolish the bureaucratic state.
And there it is. Simple as. Just abolish the bureaucratic state. That's what you should be focused on. Can you believe that? Can you believe you waited all that time? You should be focused on well, I can't remove the moose, the bears, the elves, the lion, the witch, the wardrobe. We can't remove them, and we can't remove the bureaucratic state. But now, notice what he's doing. He wants to remove an ism, an idea, the bureaucratic state. Well, that's people, Mentis, okay? So we need to focus on what people we want to remove, and they seem to very often have ties to Israel, which is what was just shown in the Epstein files. You are ignoring all of this to talk about fucking peanut butter, to talk about pufferfish, when you should be talking about the elves. You should be talking about the bears, but you're talking about peanut butter and pufferfish.
Like, for example, when it comes to foreign aid, what really needs to happen is that our politicians shouldn't be allowed to even give out foreign aid. And when that happens, the fact that Israel gets a disproportionately high amount of foreign aid, well, at that point, it wouldn't even matter anymore. That's the point I was trying to make. While their contributions to these problems is high per capita...
Shouldn't you have started this out with referencing the previous video? Isn't this kind of like a bunk apology? That's all I was trying to do. None of the criticism went into his head like James Lindsay.
Because the total number of the problem is not that high, it doesn't meaningfully change the solution to these problems away from just abolishing these institutions.
Okay, let's try this. Now, I believe Actual Justice Warrior has covered how a third, or what is it? There's like a really high, no, a third of like the crime in New York City is by like 300 people or something like that, right? So, like, it's usually, like, with elites, a minority of the population is very responsible for a majority of the offenses, right? So they're not just numbers on a piece of paper. These are human beings that we are targeting because they are the issue, because you can't just say bureaucratic state. TK for $2. Judas and Paul were moos. It is what it is. Well, it's outside of my wheelhouse, but I'll believe you. The new GM, $5. Thank you so much. My mom was made into a bearskin rug. My dad is trapped in Santa's workshop. It's working. See? We're manifesting right now. We're manifesting. Goy has the power to do that.
Outright, and taking powers away from politicians that they shouldn't have to begin with. That is the flip side of per capita that a lot of people don't really get. There's a lot more to statistics and strategy and understanding what's going on in the world and how to fix it than just per capita. Per capita is important, but it's not everything.
He thinks, okay, let's try this. I'm going to explain it to him. Let's say you pissed your pants in public, okay? And you're like, oh, well, everyone just thinks that pissing my pants is the problem. It's like, well, no, you also commit logical fallacies. You know, you have too much hubris for your ignorant opinion on this one topic. But we're talking about you pissing your pants because you pissed your fucking pants. So you got a lot of criticism for per capita because you really fucked it up. But then his brain goes, oh, well, that's all they care about. It's the all they care about fallacy. Like, well, that's what you fucked up. So that's what they're focusing on. You peed your pants. We're going to talk about how you peed your pants. It's not just that you peed your pants, but I mean, that's pretty egregious, right? You swung your dick about per capita and then you fucked it up real bad. So that's the focus of the criticism on you. Dude, he might have James Lindsay brain. I'm sorry, fellas. I might have to give him a death kiss. I might have to give him a death kiss at the wall. It's not looking good.
Anyways, hopefully that clears a few things up. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and...
I love it. Why do I love wasting your time? Why do I love showing you things that are so difficult to watch? Oh, wow. Fellas, actually, can you guys help me with something? As we're going to wind the stream down. Can you tell me how I can raid another channel? Like, I should be sending you guys somewhere else. That felt really good when someone did that for me, especially the person that did it was, I'm going to be glowing for a week. That felt really good. So how can I do that for other people, right? Does anyone know how to do that? Is it like it's like a redirect or something? How do I send you guys somewhere else? And then in the chat, you can tell me like where I can send you, right? I'm going to be glowing. You heard me. How? So if there was a stream that like one of you guys knows that someone else is streaming, and you're like, hey, send us here. How the fuck? Live redirect. Cool. Thank you, Theodore McCarthy. So what the fuck? So where is that? It's a live redirect. Okay. Thank you for helping me, fellas. Because that would be a cool thing to do. Huh. I am a fucking boomer. Dude. I can receive raids, which is good. How do I... Tell you honest when the live stream ends. Wait for a few seconds and it'll reload. Where is this? Right. Where are we going? Excellent question, right? This is good. This is a good best practice. Then if there's a certain streamer and then every Friday and every Tuesday, right? We're building relationships, right? Cultural exchange, so to speak. This sounds like a good idea. Later, the killer. Content live tab. All right. Okay. Going to the live tab. So let me go to the live tab. Here I am. Rock you like a hurricane. And then what I do is, I'm still going to chat with you guys in a few minutes to wind this down, but if I figure it out now, it'll be a lot easier. Customization. What the hell are you talking about? I'm booming. I'm booming right now. The fuck? The fuck are you talking about? Oh my God. No. Don't get mad. I'm going to tell you what you're not going to do. Here's what you're not going to do, Artie. Rob Noor. See? Oh my God. That's all I want to do is send my people to Rob Noor right now. Thank you. The best mod in the game. Fucking fight me. Okay. Head over the premiere video. Edit title. View on YouTube. Get shareable link. No. If I click on it. Paid promotion. Does it say customize anywhere? Sweet mother of pearl. Dude, but like that would be good. That would be good to send people to Rob Noor. That would be really good to do. What is it here? Okay. 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 Redirect. Okay. Yeah. Hold on. Everyone, hold on. Hold on to your tits. There's Rob Noor. That's fucking crazy that I had more live than Homeboy. That is fucking terrifying. Right. Excellent. So I believe that's set up right now. Let me hang out with the fellas in chat. Fellas, thank you so much. Dude. Remnant 777 and fucking made by Jim Bob, dude. What the fuck? I'm a guy on the internet now. This is happening too fast. What the fuck is going on? What is happening? You gotta understand. This is all happening very fast. Holy shit. Scavenge, $5. Imagining people going, hey, my Goya, sup my Goya, then freaking out on a move if they say it. That's our word now. Hilarious, as my co-host would say. Absolutely hilarious. That was awesome to see. Love Remnant. Dude, I know, but like, it takes him weeks to make a video. And dude, I don't know how the man does it. You have to understand, as an editor, every single frame has something. The sound effects, the transitions, like, he puts everything into that. And Homeboy is Christian, and Homeboy has dabbled in some debates. But his Midwit video is unbelievable. It's one of my favorite videos he's done. It's the ardent curse. I'm always peripheral to people who hit it big while I'm on for them. You, Spoon. Wow. Very nice. Good to know. I mean, I feel like Arden, though, you do handle the chat, buddy. And you fucking, I've never even had to tell him what to fucking do. If he didn't tell me, Made by Jim Bod rated me, I wouldn't have fucking known, dude. So that's Arden's doing that I even realized that. TK, did my Agit Slop donut go through? Sent a while back. Shit, I do have a donate link, and I am actually able to send thank yous on that, which I suck at doing. Which I just realized I can do. Probably. It probably went through. Is it your same name? Are you TK on there? Anyway, so is that TK, that guy that you want me to talk to? Is he just on X? Does he would I be able to see some of his content or just kind of thumb through his X? Yee TK. Go to my stuff. Let me go to my stuff. I don't know. Does that guy want to talk to me? I don't know what to do. You have to realize I went from no one listening to me to people listening to me in a matter of months, and I am fucking socially retarded, okay? I took an incredible amount of psychic damage to get to this point, okay? I wish I was doing this 10 years ago when I had 100% of my brain, but we are operating on a third of my brain that I have now. Well, don't ask him. I need to know what's going on. So I'm weird about interviews, okay? I want to make sure the content's good. Other people will just go into a conversation cold. I just think that's goofy. I'd want to talk to the person a little bit and have an idea of what we can talk about and expound upon it. I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist, but I want to have a direction to go in. He also has a Substack. Very nice. Oh. Here it is. Okay. PQ messaged me, by the way, a few months back. I didn't know he's a guy. I don't know who the guys are and who the not guys are, okay? I'm very bad with that. I'm very new. Thank you, TK. Oh, but why do you want me to talk to him? Yeah, PQ messaged me. I think he's friends with Fist, and so he talked to me. We had a very small debate about liberalism, and I told him exactly what I was going to do in our exchange. I don't think you understand how retarded I am, though. Me sparking by myself, that's one thing, right? But when people start bringing up, I don't know, things that they've read, philosophies and whatnot, I can do it, I guess. I don't know. Brutal honesty, very cool. Yeah, I also think that, I don't know, I don't think these people like me as much as you guys like me. I honestly don't know how I seem to other people. Can I fucking log into my own shit? Let's look at my phone. Oh, Homeboy's been to conferences over here, huh? What's the OGC? It's very new to me. You down with OGC? I'm not taking that back. I'm standing on that. I want you to talk to me because you can go. Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't have like deep lore and whatnot, right? Here's the thing, okay? That Eric Arval interview was really tough because I like laugh and joke around. I'm really, really bad at being serious. And if I'm riffing and joking around and the other person is like sitting there stone faced, I'm like, I don't know what to do, man. I don't know. I don't know how to suffer through this. Thought that was good, though. Needed to be said, needed to be sported. I'm very much just a guy, right? Maybe at some point I'll have like some sort of ego. I'm almost positive I'm always going to feel like I have 200 subs. I don't know how else to explain it to you. I've never been a very egotistical person, even though people have told me I'm very egotistical, but usually I won't say I'm right. I'm going to try to get them to understand me, and I make a compelling case, which then has them be like, oh, he's trying to be right. It's like, well, if you understand what I'm saying, it's, I think pretty compelling. Ask James Lindsay on. Dude, I had a Proud Boy see James Lindsay at a restaurant, and he privately messaged me to be like, dude, what do I do? I don't know, man. Why are you telling me? Oh, that was hilarious. Oh, TK, I did receive that. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Oh. Yes. So, for, donations and whatnot, I keep virtually all of the money. If you use the donate link, okay? YouTube takes 30%. My donate link, I think, takes like less than 5%, right? So much appreciated. As I've said before, your support is immediately reinvested back into the channel. You've allowed me to make videos way quicker. You've allowed me to make videos in a day when it would take me several days to make a video. So the equipment is upgraded. And we try out new things, In case you haven't noticed, I like to try out things with the stream. I recently tried out like a Rumble only stream. The issue with that is I need to have a different system for receiving donations. I tried to make it more fun with the super tips. Trying things out over here. I know what it's like to want to be entertained. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, let's see if this works, fellas. I'm going to attempt to send you to Rob Noor, okay? Rob Noor, right-winger, very moderate, very much debatey boy. He is an understudy, I would say, of Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson puts his name and his reputation on Rob Noor. Rob Noor has been debating since the Twitch days where he was always going into hostile enemy territory. Let's see if this works right now. So if you're leaving or something, I get the best fellas. Thank you so much for hanging out and witnessing how well my channel's doing. It's fun to share together. Let's see if this works. Okay, so I'm still here. So then if I end my stream, I think it'll automatically send you there. Nothing popped up on your end? is that nothing has changed for you guys, right? You're still here. So I'm assuming if I end it, it'll send you there. After your content ends. Okay, cool. So let him know that Rhetorically Defective sent you guys. And let's see how much power you guys are actually giving me. Because I am nothing without you guys. So he's at 409 right now, dude. Holy shit. I have no business. I have no business. Let's see how high we can get his numbers. Let's see if we can get him to whatever, 500-600. Let him know Artie sent you. Thank you so much, fellas. Have a good night.